Well, here we go. Good morning, and good morning. It's a Monday morning, a beautiful Monday morning here in greater Cincinnati, Ohio. What was that graphic right up there, Casey? What was that? Did that say junk on it? What is bull junk, Casey McAllister, our engineer producer? What does that mean?
So
BS? Is that another term for BS?
Yeah, it's what Deion Sanders uses.
He does. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Did you know that, Luke Brenneman?
I didn't know that.
That's what Deion says?
No, sir.
He doesn't cuss, Deion.
No.
He doesn't?
No, he doesn't. He's a man of God. He does. I mean, now in the heat of the battle, maybe, who knows, right? I mean, Dean Smith was like that. Roy Williams was like that, former legendary basketball coaches. Do you think Bob Knight cussed every now and again? Bobby Knight?
Yeah, I think so.
Probably here and there.
All right, welcome to Dialed In. I'm Tom Brenneman alongside my partner in crime, Mr. Luke Brenneman, and, of course, our producer-engineer, as I mentioned, Casey McAllister, who's very fired up this weekend. We come your way twice a week, Mondays and Fridays, 9:15 You can find us on YouTube, the Chatterbox Sports page, live. Many of you have joined us already. Hundreds, if not thousands, have jumped on. We also broadcast. Are we doing live on X?
Yes.
Elon Musk X?
That's right.
We are?
We are.
All right, we're live there as well, the Chatterbox Sports address is it at CBox Sports?
That's right.
That's what it is. Okay. And we also post on the Believe Network, so you can download us in podcast form. We suggest you do if you can't join us live. Just search anywhere. Dialed In with Tom Brenneman, and you are dialed in. All right, now, boys, let's go back to last Friday. Okay? Now, I'm walking around town, and everywhere I go, everybody's telling me how great the Reds are. They just swept the Yankees. First time it's happened since the '76 World Series. And you know what? Both of those statements are true. They did sweep the Yankees last week, and yes, it was the first time since '76 in the World Series. Now we fast forward 72 hours later. And before I get into some of the numbers, Casey, I want to ask you, because you were at the game yesterday with Jacob and Whisperin' Jim, who is a born and raised Detroit Tigers fan.
Yes, that's right.
Fired up about the Tigers' sweep. That's right. After the Reds swept the Yankees, they come home and are swept by the Tigers, a team that came here almost 10 games under 500. What was the mood like yesterday at GABP?
Tom, it was not a pretty sight. I think Jacob and I were just a little down, to say the least. Jimmy,
were you guys getting all tanked up yesterday on a Sunday afternoon?
Jacob and Jimmy were there very early. I didn't make it to the game until like the very bottom of the first inning.
Okay.
Those two were there at the banks getting tanked up.
9:30, something like that.
Something like that. They were basically tailgating for a meaningless Detroit Tigers game. But regardless, Jacob was pitiful. On the other hand, Jimmy, I've never seen him. You wouldn't have thought he was whispering Jimmy. He was
screaming Jim.
He was screaming Jimmy. He was over the moon, excited about his team. Screwball was shoving. I mean, they were just killing the Reds, basically. And they had done it all weekend long. And he was just eating it up. He can't wait to be on the show tomorrow or today.
On off the bench,
yeah.
Coming up next. The Reds scored a total. Now, okay, you hear me say this all the time, okay? And some people get all mad about it. They're like, the bottom line. Look, I always say it all the time. It's not how you hit often, it's when you hit. It's not who you play, it's when you play them, okay? The Reds had the same number of base hits in the Yankee series that they had in the Tiger series. They had 17 hits in a 3-game series against the Yanks. They had 17 hits in a 3-game series against the Tigers. The Yankees, they scored double the number of runs. They had 8 runs total in the 3 games against the Tigers. The unbelievable part is they struck out 39 times in 3 games. They struck out almost as many times in the Yankee series. But in this Detroit series, they strike out 39 times. They walk 5 times. How's that looking? In terms of batting average, on base percentage, they are among the very worst in all of Major League Baseball. And listen, it's not going to change. Okay? Now, it might over the next 7 days. You're playing the 2 worst teams in the National League, but of course, you're the 4th worst team in the National League. But the bottom line is, unless, they get some of these injured guys back, and they're not, or if the guys they have now find some sort of magic genie in a bottle, it ain't getting better because they don't have major league players starting on a daily basis in their outfield, which, by the way, led them to making a deal last night where they bring in a veteran guy, Austin Slater, 31 years old, from the Giants. They trade away a left-handed arm in Alex Young, who started the year hurt. But Young has had back-to-back really good years. For the Giants 2 years ago, for the Reds last year, and at AAA, he's dealing this year. But they don't have him on the big league team. But they bring in Slater, who basically is the same as all the other guys they have. He's pretty good against left-handed pitching, so that helps. But he's a 5th outfielder at best on a good team. But that's what they have full of outside of Fraley in their outfield right now. So anyway, Colorado comes to town tonight, 1-4. Reds are 6 games under, 10.5 behind Milwaukee. Talk more about that in a minute. Matter of fact, let's just get into it now because there's some other things we can talk about. Luke, you and I driving in today, Casey, before the show, 3 of us talking about this. I think we have reached a point with the Reds this season, and you can tell me, okay, they rip off the next 7. They beat Colorado and the Marlins. They go 6-1, 7-0, something like that. Okay, they're whatever under 500. Going into the All-Star break, they got some momentum. Do they really? I mean, if I would have said to you when the season began, the Reds starting outfield would consist of guys like Benson, although a lot of you are very excited about him, tell the truth. Benson, Blake Dunn, Stuart Fairchild, Austin Slater. If I would have told you at the beginning of the year that was going to be the Reds' pretty much outfield, okay, because that's what it is now. The over-under would have been 69, 68 wins.
Totally. And if you actually look at it outside of the streakiness that the Reds seem to do on a week-by-week basis, from just a record perspective, they're not in like a terrible spot.
No.
Granted, the National League and Major League Baseball in general has been bad when it comes to there's a ton of these teams in the middle of the pack, especially in that NL wildcard race, where it's crazy to think that the Reds are competing with about 6 different teams for a wild card spot, and all the teams in the wild card spots right now, probably outside of Atlanta just because of how good they are. But the Reds are also competing to not be a bottom 3 team in the National League. So it's really hard for a fan's perspective because this sweep from the Tigers, it just stings a little more. And you wanted to be buyers at the deadline, and you wanted to give yourself a second half of the season that was filled with entertainment and guys returning from injuries. And I think that this series sweep just really put all of that to a screeching stop. And it's a weird position for Reds fans because I hate to say it, and sometimes the truth hurts, but I think they're at a point now after this sweep that, yeah, they have 7 against 2 of the worst teams in the MLB. Whatever happens there, I don't think you necessarily look at it as life or death as you maybe could have looked at when you beat the top team in the American League 3 in a row.
Look, they played
one of the
great
toughest
this
places
year
to play.
against the Dodgers, the Yankees, the Phillies. I mean, they're Red speak. But, you know, let's be honest. When they played those teams, they had a lot more guys that were playing then than are playing now.
Yeah, and they're just not healthy. They're not a playoff baseball team.
No.
You're starting Blake Dunn, Will Benson, Stuart Fairchild on a day-by-day basis. I mean, these are three guys that if you trio that in an outfield grouping, you are probably happy if there's one hit between the three of them just looking at their numbers.
No doubt about it.
I hate to be a numbers guy, but I'm slowly turning into one. And if you keep watching this on a day-by-day basis, the numbers aren't changing. If Will Benson is hitting 180, he is going to get less than 2 hits every 10 at-bats. And that's what happens. So when everybody comes in and comes on the radio in the morning and says, hey, we're surprised, at the midway mark, you can't be surprised anymore. That's why you can't buy, and that's why you got to stick with what you got.
Look, I admire the Reds for trying to go out and do something. And look, this may turn out to be a good deal. I mean, because one thing Slater, now, some of you may know that name, because early in the year when the Reds were out in San Francisco, Slater went crashing into the wall trying to make a catch in one of the games that week and injured his shoulder. So he was out for a long time. He's just recently come back. I mentioned he's only played in about half the number of games that the Giants have played this year. And look, he's a major league guy. He's been in the big leagues for about 6-7 straight years now as an extra outfield, fifth guy. But, a couple of years when he's gotten a little more playing time, he's done pretty well. He's very good against left-handed pitching, which we know has been a disaster for the Reds. And Alex Young goes back to San Francisco where he had his best major league season 2 years ago, and he's healthy again. Now, a guy with a bad back, I don't know how long you can count on that, but man, left-handed guys that get people out don't fall out of trees. I guess the Reds feel like they like the guys they have there now. But here's the bottom line. I would not read this, would you, as all of a sudden the Reds are going to be buyers at the deadline?
No, absolutely not. And when I woke up, and I think I heard it from you before I even saw it on my phone, the Reds made a trade is the first thing I heard, not for a fourth outfielder hitting a career 250 in Austin Slater. I said, whoa, who did the Reds go buy? Because first of all, who do they have to sell to buy anyone good? They proved that they don't. But I personally don't hate this Slater move. I don't think it's a buy at the deadline. I think they could have done this before the season. It's just what happens when guys get injured, and I mentioned this a couple weeks ago on the show, they're so young that, inconsistency stinks and you're surprised that you could sweep the Yankees and then get swept by the Tigers. But the number one thing with young players is inconsistency. Mm-hmm. So if you have a full team of young guys early on in their major league careers, you are going to be inconsistent. So to bring in, a 30-plus-year-old guy who's been around the league, he's hit over 250 for his career, just as a solid defender. He's been around multiple clubhouses, good baseball teams. I really think it's good for the group and their futures. But right now, none of them are playing that good a baseball to where it's like, hey, bringing in some veteran isn't going to make you hit or not hit sub 200 anymore or have a negative WAR. But got to do something, right? If we're going to sit here and knock the front office and make all these complaints about injuries, they did something. They brought in another outfielder. Right. Maybe he can rally the troops.
And the other thing that it does is, let's be honest about it. This guy goes from playing in one of the toughest hitters' ballparks in all of Major League Baseball, out in San Francisco, to the most hitter-friendly ballpark in Major League Baseball. So, look, he's hit as many as 12, 14 home runs, whatever it is in a season. You can probably tack on 5, 6 more if he plays regularly than that. He only has 1 this year because of the injury, but we'll see. By the way, the rosters came out yesterday for the All-Star game. I tell you, this really is where baseball is now. In a lot of ways, it's very exciting. In some other ways, I'd be interested in hearing your guys' opinion on this. There was a time where you had a laundry list of guys that were going to their 6th, their 7th, their 8th, their 9th, their 10th All-Star game, right? And there are a couple of those guys this year, Bryce Harper, and there are some others. But this year there are 33 first-time All-Stars. 19 of the All-Stars combined from both leagues are age 27 or younger, including, of course, the Reds' Elly de la Cruz. Now, one of the best stories is the former Red, Jeff Hoffman. He's 31 years old, Colorado and the Reds, and he bounced around. He lands in Philadelphia and has become an outstanding reliever with the Phillies. He goes to his first ever All-Star game. The Reds let him lead at the end of the 2022 season, and he had a good year. But here's the thing. If baseball is trying to get, and I'm curious from both of you guys because you're younger guys. Luke, I'll start with you. Is it good to have all these guys that a lot of people have never heard of? Is it good to have those guys, or are you going to draw eyeballs if you have more guys that people are familiar with? Because this is going to be a bunch of guys that as they walk up to the plate, now I'm not talking about the hardcore fan, but as they walk up to the plate, most of the people who even lightly follow baseball, or even more than lightly, they're not going to know who over half or three-quarters of these guys are.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, I think baseball is in a transition of they're entering a new era.
Yeah.
And it's hard to see, but I think it's pretty true. I mean, I'm not going to go as far as saying guys like Paul Goldschmidt, Nolan Arenado, Chris Bryant, Anthony Rizzo. I mean, that was the core when it comes to power hitting, third baseman, first. I mean, I've left out a bunch of names,
sure,
right? But all four of those guys I just mentioned are being outplayed by the now All-Stars. So if that's the case, they got to be All-Stars. I always hate the idea of saying, hey, an All-Star game's a big game for us. We need, like, as a organization of Major League Baseball, we need to put the guys out there that are going to draw views and clicks. And from a business perspective, it absolutely makes sense. But at the end of the day, if you deserve to be an All-Star, you should be an All-Star. The voting can absolutely corrupt it a little bit when it comes to the starters. But for the most part, I do give MLB fans credit. They vote pretty well. They get some of the guys that, I mean, Arizona Diamondback, Ketel Marte at second base, he was voted in as the starter because he's having an insane year. That's a smaller market compared to, another Dodger getting put in or another Philly. And that's going to happen, or another Philly. But I think when it comes to the All-Star game, it's a new generation. It's good to see the young guys. But with the MLB, there's such a drop-off between all those guys up there hitting like 320, having record-breaking years. And then I feel like the casual in the MLB used to be a 250 to 260 hitter, and now it's a 220 hitter.
That's right.
So that big drop-off does make those discrepancies really pop out, because you got to give the nods to the Luis Arraez, who may just be a single-double type of hitter, but he's hitting 320.
Well, I mean, the guy can hit.
That's what I'm saying.
He can really hit.
But you might not know who he is, compared to someone who's hitting 225, but they have 30 home runs. It's a weird game right now in Major League Baseball. I'll watch the All-Star game. I really will.
Well, not many people are watching it. I mean, that we know. The World Series numbers have gone down every single year. They had a slight uptick from the year before last year, but I mean, in terms of historically, the numbers for the All-Star game and the World Series are just awful. I wonder, Casey, I mean, you really are a great guy, I think, to ask this question and hear your perspective, because you admittedly are a guy who really just sort of came to baseball 2 years ago. You decided before last season that I'm going to start investing and watching. And, I mean, you go to a lot of games.
Yep.
You spend your money to go to the games. You watch them on television. I'm curious, do all of these now young guys get you excited to want to watch the All-Star game? Or would you rather see the Bryce Harpers, et cetera, Mookie Betts of the world?
Well, that's a good question, Tom. I think in general, All-Star, Pro Bowl, the NBA All-Star games, they're all sort of like becoming irrelevant now. I think it's not necessarily who's in it, but just the game itself. People don't like it because of the injury perspective of it, the level of play that's actually on the field, right? They're not trying their hardest. It's kind of why the NBA All-Star stuff has kind of died down. It's a joke, right? The games are a joke. Now, with baseball, I think it's probably the most competitive out of all the ones out there.
Without a doubt. Yeah, the NBA thing is. We'll get into that another time. Even the greats of the past say it's a joke.
But that being said, like a lot like what Luke said, it is becoming a new generation, right? I want to see the best players play. I want to see who those people are. Now, you could have a debate whether that's the Mookies of the world or if it's some of the newer guys. But to be fair, like Elly De La Cruz, who's not hitting, I think he's like hitting like 250 or something like that.
Maybe not even that.
He's the sixth best player on the All-Star roster, I'm pretty sure, in terms of WAR wins above replacement. Right. So, I mean, like, people that don't necessarily watch the Reds or follow the Reds or, keep track of all the big names around the league will know Elly because of this game now. So, in one way, I'm happy that new faces are coming in. Happy that it's becoming a little younger. We're starting to get to that new generation, so then I can learn those guys.
Yeah, that's right.
But at the same time, I kind of understand why people want to see the old faces too. I mean, it's a popularity contest, and the viewership already is declining. So you need the viewer perspective in terms of what the MLB needs. They need those faces, but maybe it's time to move on.
Yeah, see, they don't have, and this is where guys like Elly De La Cruz are so extraordinarily important to the future of this sport. I mean, the things he does on the field, we see him, and you see him every day because it's Cincinnati. But, the guy goes to New York, and they want to shoot a bunch of commercials and stuff. When he comes into town, they bring him in, fastest man on earth. I mean, baseball is hanging its hat on guys like him. Acuna, who's out for the year. These are the guys that they are hanging their hat on being the future of the game. They've got to be great players for this game to have any chance. But let's get back to De La Cruz for a second. I think it's great for the town. I think it's great for the franchise. And it's great for him that he's in the All-Star game.
There's no doubt, at least in my opinion, that every team should be represented in the All-Star game.
Yeah.
I know that's been going around the chat the last couple of minutes, but that's a hot debate topic everywhere around this time. How are some of these guys All-Stars? They only are getting an All-Star because it's their one All-Star,
That's right.
But at the end of the day, everyone should be represented in the game. If you think of any All-Star game, if you take a high school conference All-Star game, they're going to take a best guy from every team and start there just for representation purposes. It's good. The All-Star game isn't competitive, and there's no advantage to it anymore like there used to be, where you'd get, wasn't it Game 7 of the World Series?
Well, you get home field advantage for the World Series.
That's what I'm saying. When there was that perk, it's like these guys are going out there grinding because majority of the All-Stars are coming from teams that are in the hunt to win a pennant or the World Series. So with the game not necessarily meaning anything outside of an entertainment purpose, it makes total sense that everyone should be represented. And to your point about that, Gunnar Henderson is absolutely in that conversation of young players in the MLB.
Yeah.
I think Adley Rutschman and both of them are all-star starters. So it's going to be good for exposure purposes that they get to play.
Bobby Witt Jr., as it's pointed out by Sean Connor in the chat, guy like that. A lot of people don't get to see him.
Profar is having an unreal year. Nobody knows who he is.
Right.
And he's playing in a pretty big market, too. I mean, they sell out every game in San Diego is another topic. But other than that, I think this All-Star game's not going to be bad. The teams look really good. I think the only kind of weird spots are obviously 3 Phillies in the NL. I don't love that. They deserve it, probably. I didn't really look into that shortstop race too much, but Harper, Bohm's having an unbelievable year. He's a young guy in the MLB. So the future looks bright. I don't think anyone's like, the MLB has no young talent coming up.
No.
It's just when you get into a phase where the young talent is dominating something like this, you're like, who are these guys? But at the end of the day, they're the best players in Major League Baseball right now.
Everett, you make a great point here, and this is something we've really never gotten into on the show about Major League Baseball. They got a great group of young stars. And it's actually up to them to actually highlight these young stars, unlike Mike Trout. In fairness to Major League Baseball, Major League Baseball approached Mike Trout multiple times about basically becoming the face of Major League Baseball. PR campaigns, a whole 9 yards. Trout, he said, that's not my deal. I don't want to do it. The NFL guys do it. They line up from here to next week to do it. Were you invited to the white party, by the way?
No, I don't. I lost my invitation. That's why I'm wearing all black, because
Okay,
I didn't get my invitation.
okay,
I'm
all
kind of in protest about it. But no, I did not go to the white party. A lot of great characters there, though. A lot of great characters.
Jamar was there.
Jamar.
Burrow was there.
Burrow. Livy Dunn was there.
Livy Dunn.
Yeah.
Just saw her in a great commercial. But I know a lot of people like talking about how attractive she is and how popular and all that. But she is. Was she a cheerleader or something?
That's how she's famous.
Was she a gymnast?
She's super famous.
Well, that's
gymnast.
I understand that, but I'm saying I had never seen this commercial till yesterday. And when she's doing all, I think it's for one of the fitness clothing, Aloe or
it's for
Lululemon.
Viore.
Viore, right. And she's doing all these flips and stuff on the beach. I'm like, wow, I didn't know. Anyway, back to the white party. Were you invited to the white party? Did you lose your invitation? You're the kind of guy that would love the white party.
That is
you like
not
being a little
true.
bit drip.
That is
You
not
like,
true.
don't you, Casey? Am I right?
I see it, Tom. He's just being modest right now. You win.
You are a white party kind of guy.
No, this is a funny little story. I got invited to the Midwest Indiana University style of white party at my fraternity formal day party, whatever. And I screwed it up so bad that I went to H&M. I'm like, I can get these white.
You went with a date to this thing, right?
Right. But
right, okay.
it was all the theme was like white party, kind of like that style, us just trying to be like the East Coast riches, absolutely not. But anyway, I go to H&M. I'm like, they got these white pants for $20. Like, I'm balling on a budget. I'm going to look good. So I get a white linen shirt, get the white pants, and I think I look good. First guy I see is my buddy on the steps of our fraternity house, and he's like, dude, you got two different whites on. And I looked in the mirror again in different lighting, and it was like one of them was darker, and the other one was kind of light and see-through. And it was just an awful look. So I already failed at the white party. I hear that the biggest ballers in Cincinnati are having what they call a gray party at the Little Miami River coming up.
Ooh, a gray.
So
the what?
The gray party.
The gray party.
Right.
So you wear gray.
It's just like the Little Miami River. It's like a white party. They're in the Hamptons,
That's why he's wearing all
Montauk.
gray, Tom.
That's fancy.
Who's having this party?
I'm just saying. I'm foreshadowing it. I think it's going to consist of some big names in the city.
That'd be big.
Right
Logan Wilson would probably come to something like that, right? Along the Little
I'm
Miami
sure Marty
River.
Brenneman would find his way in
Marty
there.
Brenneman, he would definitely
He'd probably
go to
sneak in there.
He would definitely. He wouldn't have to sneak in. He would be the red carpet rolled out.
Oh, yeah.
No, but if
Paparazzi.
Can't have a red carpet.
A gray carpet.
Gray carpet, right.
White out.
But you are the kind of guy who would love
Dude,
the white,
no,
the all
I
white.
am
There's
not.
Casey knows it. I know it. Our audience
I think
knows
those
it. Everybody
conspiracies
knows
with
it.
that
It's right
party
up
is
your
the
alley.
stupidest thing too.
Okay, I want to shift gears for a minute because, Casey, you said something before the show today. And look, I know at the end of the day, people want me to sit up here and start burying the Reds. It's just not going to happen because they don't have the horses. We will get into, as we get closer to the trade deadline, Brandon Metter, the GM, Nick Kroll, they've already said we're not going to trade the core, whatever the core is. I mean, I got to be honest with you. It'd be easy to sit there and rip them off on your hand, but half of them can't play because they're hurt. Another one didn't play 80 games because he was suspended. Other ones, before they got hurt, were playing terribly. This is what we talked about during the offseason. I talked about this religiously, and I'm not patting myself on the back here. My dad and I on the show here have talked about this. There is very much a thing known as a sophomore slump. There is in baseball. It just seems to be more so in baseball. I don't know why, than other sports. And you say it's all nonsense. And okay, fine. But, we thought Encarnacion Strand was going to be this. Okay? He was hitting $180 before he got hurt. Now maybe he was hitting $180 because he was hurt. McLean, we haven't seen him. Elly's going to the All-Star game, but he's a .240 batter. He's doing other things, his WAR and so forth, 6th best in the league, as Casey mentioned. So no complaints with him. Marte, it's not been a good 10-game run. I mean, it has not been good at the plate or in the field. Another critical error yesterday. 5 errors in his last 8 games, led to 3 unearned runs against Alexis Diaz. Now, he didn't throw the pitch to the next batter and gave up a home run. But, Friedel's hurt all the time. Fraley, God bless him, he's got the child that had cancer and treatments during the offseason. He's just left the team for a while. Our thoughts and prayers are all with them naturally. The core pitchers are the ones that have been outstanding. Abbott has been phenomenal. Hunter Green has just been, he's really been good. He'll aggravate you from time to time with 100 pitches in 4 innings like 2 starts ago. But he has been unbelievable. Lodolo, you can never get him on the field. He would have gone to the All-Star game this year, by the way. The Reds would have had 2 players in the All-Star game. Alexis Diaz, after a slow start, has been fantastic. So, look, there are some good things about the Reds, but offensively, they're just too challenged, not enough studs. So I want to shift gears. And I don't know how many people are really into, I think maybe they have their 20-something thousand hardcore fans, and then everybody else is sort of on the sidelines just watching. And that would be FC Cincinnati. But I tell you, Casey, and you're the guy, FC, what they're building down there, it's a budding juggernaut down there.
Right. I agree, Tom. It's fascinating to me that it gets so much hate, at least from our demographic. It's one of the best sports teams here in Cincinnati. They're young, up and coming, and right now they are leading MLS once again, first in all of MLS, top of the table. They demolished Inter Miami, say what you will, about Suarez and Messi not being there. Those guys don't play defense. And, boy, FC just demolished.
6-1.
Demolished them.
That's a total tail kicking in soccer.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Regardless of if those two were there, they were struggling keeping possession the entire game. And, they would have no chances on offense based off how they performed just this last Saturday. It was, like I said, a tail kicking. Congrats to Pat Nunan for figuring that out.
My guy.
The dude came out with this lineup, and I was like, man, why is Kubo up front? Well, why we got such a small lineup out there? Well, we decided that we were just going to run past those guys. We were going to just be the team that just – a lot like Miami Dolphins, how they are just a track team. They just run around everywhere. That's basically what our front was, and it just killed them. They had no answers to it. They don't have the depth and the roster pieces to defend something like that. Acosta was just everywhere. Oreno was just phenomenal. Kubo is Kubo. He can play anywhere and be decent for you. And, man, it was just lights out. It was relentless. They had a mission, and they passed with flying colors. Congrats to Pat Noonan and the boys for getting the first place. I hope that this continues on further. They're going to end up going to Leagues Cup here soon. They take a break from MLS.
Why do you have to ruin my enthusiasm with this total nonsense of the sport?
But it's an in.
I know, but it's such nonsense. It takes away the fandom. It takes away the momentum. It's a joke. It's a total joke. But back to FC. You said something to me, and as you know, I have always been, even before I found out he was a neighbor of mine, I have always been a Pat Noonan guy from the very beginning because I loved his press conferences.
Yep.
When his team plays good, he has nice things to say. When they don't play well, he has not nice things to say. And I like hearing it. And there is something about this guy. Your idea, which I think is the best idea I have heard from you in all the years now we've been working together, is what?
Well, I think that there's a legitimate chance that U.S. men's national team takes a look at Pat Noonan as a potential replacement for their head coaching position. It makes a lot of sense to where you look at his resume. He used to be a former player for the U.S. men's national team.
Yes, he was. He was an assistant coach for the U.S. men's national team.
That's right. So he's got some history there. He's one of the best MLS coaches, one of the best homegrown talents here in America. I know that position could be looked at on a global scale.
Of course it could.
It could be any phenomenal.
Yeah, you could hire a guy from Germany to run the team.
But the fact that Pat Nunan right now holds the number 1 spot in MLS, he's taken a team from the bottom, the very bottom of the barrel, and took them all the way to the top, developed these guys. He's developed young talent time and time again. He's got a proven track record in doing so. I think it makes a lot of sense for him to be the next head coach for the U.S. men's national team. Now, I'd hate that for me being an FC fan, but it makes a whole lot of sense for the team to do so.
What do you think about that, Lukey?
You know what I'll say is I don't follow FCC very much, but I know one consistent thing that we talk about here when it comes to the Reds is if you're a small market team, it all starts in the front office. How are you going to get players here for cheap, make things work, and you have to play your way to the top. That's how it works. And in October of 2021, FC Cincinnati brought in a new general manager. In 2021, FCC won 4 matches, lost 22, and had a negative 37 goal differential. Since then, they have had a plus goal differential every year and had the best record in 2023 in the MLS. They currently have the best record right now, and that was since hiring Chris Albright in 2021. So if you're going to give Nunan credit, obviously they all deserve credit over there because nothing's going bad, unlike the baseball team downtown. But they absolutely deserve credit at every single level of there because I, as a guy who doesn't even follow the soccer team, got worried when they lost Brandon Vasquez, and I was like, oh, well, we had a good run here, but of course someone went and nabbed our best player who's on the national team. But the way they've continued to improve year by year has been great for the city.
Yeah. The one other thing, too, I see a lot of people that are like, oh, no, don't do that. They're the FC fans here.
Are they saying no, don't? I'm curious. We're talking about the chat now. I'm curious, are they saying no, don't do that because Nunan would leave, kind of like you said, as an FC fan, or no, he won't get consideration for such a job?
Well, like I said, it's a global consideration, and there are MLS coaches like probably the Columbus Crew head coach. I can't remember what his name is right now.
Yeah, but he's got his style of play, and he
would probably be up there before Pat Nunan. Now, let me clarify this take because if Pat Nunan doesn't win the MLS Cup this year, maybe even if he wins MLS League the league, the Porter Shield, if he wins league, he would probably still get consideration. But if he wins the whole thing, if he wins the championship, there's no reason why he shouldn't get looked at, to be honest with you.
I just don't. I mean, he to me is everything. And look, I don't follow it closely enough to know all of the potential candidates. And Casey brings up a great point. It is an potentially international hire. The women's team, the men's team, they've had people who are from some other country be the head coach of the U.S. national team. Okay? So that has happened before and could very well happen again. But I always say to myself, it's kind of like what the Atlanta Braves used to do in baseball. If you've got two really good candidates, let's say Nunan's one and somebody from Germany is the other, okay? And maybe the guy from Germany is a little more experienced. Maybe the guy from Germany has more on his quote-unquote resume. But at the end of the day, they're both damn good coaches. I'm taking the guy from the United States.
I think you'd be a crowd pleaser as well.
Yeah, I mean, I've taken the guy from the United States because, getting back to the Braves analogy, the Braves would do this kind of thing with players who are from their area. They look at a guy from Texas and they look at a guy from Georgia and they'd say, okay, well, you know what? With the 3rd round, the 5th round, the 7th round, the 9th round pick in the draft, okay, if the guy from Texas is the same as the guy from Georgia, I have a feeling the guy from Georgia would have just a little more to play for the Braves. Just a little bit more. And they hit the lottery on countless times doing stuff like that. Now, I'm sure there are other American coaches that are more qualified. But I think Nunan, that's a phenomenal idea. I think because it's a mess. It is an absolute mess. The women compete. They've won more than they've lost on the international stage. And that might be coming to an end now, too. And they don't represent themselves, most of them, very well over there either, with the national anthem stuff. And I mean, it's disgusting. It's despicable. But But the men's team, I mean, to think that our men in anything, any sport, I say this all the time, for the United States to not be among the very best in everything is insanity. We have more than everybody else. We have better than everybody else. Our facilities are better than everybody else. Our United States men's soccer team program should be in the top 4 or 5 in the world. And we can't even qualify for some thing they're playing right now.
Copa America.
Right.
Yeah. It's not good. It's not good getting bounced in the group stage.
No.
And I'll tell you this too. Even if he's not successful, he'll hold that team accountable and he'll say the right things when it comes to the interviews. He won't give you some bull crap. He won't give you some bull junk. He'll say it how it truly is, and he'll tell you what's going on and get those guys in the best order that he can, regardless of what talent he's given. So the other thing, too, that I would say is maybe like a little cherry on top is the fact that if you are a national team fan, if you're a USA national men's team fan, you would like the idea of maybe Acosta joining him on those trips. Acosta's been talking about potentially joining the U.S. men's national team, hasn't made the jump yet for it. Pat Noonan's the coach there. If he's the manager there,
oh, well, there's no doubt about that.
I think
He'd
that
get
that
a
would
look,
be
that's
huge
for sure.
boost.
He'd get a look. All right, Reds and the Rockies tonight. First of 4, then the Marlins in for a 3-game series before the All-Star break. The All-Star game is a week from Tuesday night. The guys ready for off the bench?
That's right.
Give them the lineup because now we made some changes here, Casey. The lineup on off the bench coming up here in a matter of a minute.
Yeah, we've got myself producing the show, of course. We got Jacob and Elliot on my left.
Yes.
Sitting on those couches over there. And then on my right is going to be Jimmy.
He's
Jimbo.
fired up, Jim.
Fired up, Jimmy. And then our host, Justin Kenner, who just recently joined us, will be hosting the show.
So that is coming up. Any other news and notes I need to be made aware of, programming notes?
I don't think so, Tom.
Okay. Luke?
I have a final thought.
Final thought. Make it quick.
Reds fans, as you head in the All-Star break, think about this to hold on to a little optimism. Look at the Pittsburgh Pirates. They have the best young pitching core in baseball with Jones, Keller, and obviously Skeens. All of those guys have been healthy, and they've pitched well and great.
Yep.
O'Neal Cruz, very comparable to Elly, a insane young talent at shortstop who can run and can hit for power. They're very similar to us. They have the same amount of wins. They're a half game better because they haven't played as many games as the Reds. The Reds have been completely beat up this entire year. I don't think getting swept by the it stinks coming off the Yankee sweep, but I don't think you can be too pessimistic. The injuries have killed this baseball team, and I really do think this young core can work out if they're ever healthy together.
It's all about hope. Your guy Obama, hope and change. That's Luke. That's Luke. He's all about hope. I love it. He's giving Reds fans hope rolling into the final games before the All-Star break. Gentlemen, thank you. Well done. Quit chuckling over there, Luke. Just having a little fun. All right. Thanks so much for being with us. We're back on Friday, 9:15. We'll talk about this series with Colorado, and we'll see what else is going on. We're going to start doing some NFL stuff here soon. Training camps are opening up very, very soon. Luke and I decided we're going to do like a preview, not only of the division, but the teams that are on the Bengals schedule. Rather than a league-wide, I don't know how many care about New England. I don't think they do, right? But in terms of teams that are on the Bengals schedule this year, we'll look at some of them outside of their division. All right, everybody have a great day. Off the Bench is coming up right now. Enjoy your Monday.
The Browns, they're putrid. They're the worst team in the NFL.
The season, the 2024 season is over.
Lamar Jackson can't win the playoffs. He'll win a third MVP, though, so that's great.
Drew Sample is the most important piece of the Bengals offense next year.
Go Joe Burrow. He deserves to be MVP. I wish he was the Browns quarterback. Kind of mean that.
If you're looking for the most reactionary, silly, and unserious show on the internet, then you're home. Live from Hamilton, Ohio, it's Off the Bench by Chatterbox Sports on 1410 ESPN Radio.
Off the Bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers. Welcome in. Happy Monday. We are off and rolling this week. And, the plan for today's show, a lot of Cincinnati Reds. There's a lot of chatter here on Chatterbox Sports about those Cincinnati Reds, of course. Good morning and welcome in. I'm Justin Kinner. We got the full round table of guys here ready to hit the ground running here on this Monday morning. We'll start with Casey. Casey, good morning. Welcome.
Good morning. Good morning.
Look at you. Black polo.
That's
Everyone
right.
has been complimenting your attire today, by the way.
Yeah, I've been getting a lot of compliments. I'm wearing all black. I don't know if anyone can see that.
Slimming.
Yeah.
Very.
I'm wearing it in protest. I didn't get my whiteout invitation.
Michael Rubin you got lost in the mail?
Yeah. I where's my invite?
I think you have to sell your soul to go to that party. So.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So Joe Burrow sold his soul.
Wow.
Is that what you're
You
saying?
never know.
I'm surprised Joe Burrow got his invite to that because he hasn't played and people forget about him or whatever he was crying about or whatever you were talking about before. I don't know. I don't know, but you look great. You look great, and this is your second show of the day, so you're loosened up, you're lubed up, you're ready to go.
I'm ready to go.
So there you go. Now, the guy that is keeping me honest, the guy that is continuing to stick to the T-shirt plan, I like that.
Yeah.
Because now I walked in, I saw everyone wearing a polo, and I'm like, well, damn. I was like, I need to break out. I only have a couple polos that fit. That's my problem. I got to space them out throughout the week. But T-shirt wearing Elliott Rearing, everybody.
T-shirt wearing Elliot. Thank you. Yeah, it's a beautiful day, and I do have polos, but at this point, I'm too far gone. I'm just gonna keep wearing the T-shirts, the dark colored T-shirts, and we'll just keep rolling with that. I don't think anybody gets offended by it. That's the good news. The bad news is you do look like a little bit of a bum, and that's okay. And that's the cross eye. That's the cross eye bear. But it's a beautiful day. What day is it? The 8th of July. And listen, the last weekend, the past couple of days, they didn't exist. They didn't happen.
You want to know? You want to know how excited I was for today's show? That I sent you guys the outline for today's show like Friday afternoon, like 3 days in advance. And I'm not going to lie to you, the show had a much different vibe and feel on Friday afternoon.
I was very excited for
I couldn't
today.
wait for today, and I woke up today like, do I get PTO days at Chatterbox? I'm not really sure how this works, to be honest with you. But yeah. So Jacob Tissett, how are you this morning?
I could be better, but it's all right. I'm sure the Reds will sweep and then get swept again, so it'll be the roller coaster I signed up for.
I think we're going to talk a little Reds today. Now,
I think so.
I think I've introduced everyone, right? Have we introduced everyone?
Yeah, we're good.
I think we're good.
We're good.
Right? We're good. However, before I do introduce this guy, and I'm setting this up for Elliott. I don't know if you saw his little tweet. I mean, he was Mr. Hot Take over the weekend.
Which tweet?
Oh, which tweet? That's a good question. Let's take a look at the tweet. Let's take a look at the trash talk, everybody. Take a look. Look at this.
It's just Nolan.
Easy. Easy sweep. Easy. We love it. Reds stink.
Jimmy's absolutely tanked in that
Reds
video.
stink?
I mean, he is tanked.
But
Those cheeks are as red as cheeks have ever been. I mean, he hat backwards, 2 buttons on the top of that jersey have already gone. I mean, he's tanked up.
Well, he said easy. What was this? What,
That was
I
the
do have a
broom.
question. Were you stirring the pot, or was that supposed to be a sweeping motion? Jimmy, everybody. What the hell was that? What was that hand motion you were doing?
There was supposed to be a sweeping motion.
Oh, it wasn't. It
That
was
didn't look
stirring the
like
pot.
it.
It was stirring the pot. That's what I took.
It didn't translate.
But stirring the pot also.
Let's look at it again.
Stirring the
Oh
pot.
yeah, look at that.
That's a sweep.
I don't know.
It works.
I'm being nice. Someone else that look. It could, I mean, we could,
Looks like you're
make
trying
other
to
jokes.
start the
Yeah.
car and it's just not working.
Oh, man,
worked.
flashbacks to the memorial all this.
Yeah.
Trace, calm down. We're all good. We're all good. But no, with that being said, yeah. So Jimmy was, who's very quiet. I come in today and he's dressed up. He had a smile on his face. I thought on Monday morning, everyone's usually kind of just easing into the week. Not him, not Jimmy. Jimmy is a Tigers fan, and he's feeling himself, and he's feeling his Tigers after the disaster that we saw at Great American Ballpark over the weekend.
Oh, yeah. I had probably the best weekend I've had in a long time.
Happy for you.
I went to go see my family Wednesday night, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Came back, very excited for the game on Sunday, but my pre-plan was, I'm going to come back and get ready for the game Sunday, but we will have already lost the first two because I didn't like the matchups there, and hopefully we'll salvage one on Sunday with Schoolball on the mound. I was wrong. We won both. So I was very happy going into yesterday because we had already won the series that Elliot told me that the loser organization that was the Tigers was going to lose. And it looks like the winning organization that is the Tigers swept the Reds, and it was a wonderful weekend. I got a new birthday polo, new Tigers polo.
Happy birthday, Jim.
Wearing it today. Went downtown with some of these guys yesterday for the game. Had a great time. Elliot decided not to go because he didn't like the way that the Reds were playing.
So hold on, he just skipped your birthday?
Yeah.
He
Just
texted
because the way
Jimmy
the Reds were playing?
and said, "We lost game 1 and 2. I'm not going and seeing a sweep."
He did.
But it wasn't about it was about Jimmy's birthday.
By the way, I've never been more happy with my decision in my entire life.
He did warn me. He did warn me after game 1 that if they lost game 2, he wasn't going.
Okay.
And I told him that that's not the spirit, whatever, but they're not going to lose game 2. Well, they found a way to lose game 2, and so he didn't come yesterday.
And by the way, who needs enemies when you have friends like that? I can't believe it was about his birthday. How old are you? 20?
22.
22. Okay, 22. It's his 20. It's the big 2-2.
If he would have picked Saturday, I would have been there. If he would have picked the Saturday game, I would have been there. He picked the Sunday day game. I've made my opinion known. I don't like going to those games in general. I actually planned on going to the game. I really
get to
did.
pick when your birthday is.
Sure you do. Yeah, you do. And here's the thing. Jimmy decided he's going to go pick the Sunday day game. I don't like the heat. I don't like sitting there in the sun. I don't like the crowds. I don't like any part of a Sunday day game. I hate it. It's my least favorite game to go to during a week. He picked that day. I knew the Reds were going to get swept. As soon as they lost that first one the way they did, I knew it was over. The whole series was over. So, yeah, I was happy with my decision. Jimmy, I'm very sorry I didn't go.
No, it's
okay. You know what? Maybe next year I'll go. Maybe next year I will go. But Jimmy was talking about that. I will say this. That wasn't really the biggest win Detroit's had over the past year. Detroit ended 2023 with the fewest homicides in 57 years.
You know what?
Everybody.
You know why that is the case?
COVID?
It's because the Lions were good.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay. Football team good. I know kill people. That's what it is.
Gunnar Henderson leading AL MVP odds. Baltimore murder rates down.
Yes, look at that.
I just don't think that you needed to go that far after your baseball team lost a couple games. Like that was pretty mean.
Oh, you get your feelings hurt? By the way,
Jimmy fragile.
Yeah. I mean, you're soft at 22. I mean, I feel like 21-year-old Jimmy could have handled that, but 22-year-old Jimmy, not so much. But
Jimmy, glass case of emotion.
But yeah, so the reality, I mean, I'm a big glass case of emotion right now after what happened over the weekend. Look, let's be real. Last week, I gave Elliot a lot of fill in the blank because I'm like, stop with the negativity, dude. Like, this is a Yankees series. This is an opportunity to turn things around. And they did. They did turn it around. They didn't just take the series from the Yankees. They didn't just take game 1 because after game 1, I'm like, well, I'm not going to get the full reaction from Elliot because they always win game 1, right?
Yeah.
Jimmy's over here like, not always. But, you know, they take game 1 against the Yankees. Then they take game 2. And then they take game 3. They sweep the Yankees in New York. And then you look at this, I mean, just cupcake schedule. I got diabetes looking at the final 3 series heading in, all right, to the All-Star break. That's how cupcake of a schedule this is. And leave it to the Cincinnati Reds to go on the road against the Yankees and sweep the Yankees, not just take 2 or 3. They could have taken 2 or 3. I would have been more than happy with that. I mean, after Elliot's reaction last week, just taking game 1, I would have been happy with that. He called the sweep. The sweep was just a series too late. How do you go on the road? How do you go and beat the Yankees, sweep the Yankees in New York, and then come home for 3 series against 3 horrible teams, and maybe not horrible, but, you know, especially in being mean here, I don't know where we get this idea that we're looking down at these teams when the Reds and Tigers have the same exact record, but that's an argument for later on. But the bottom line is, this is just the most Cincinnati Reds thing ever. I said it as a joke last week that the Reds, you'll watch, they'll sweep the Yankees and go and get swept by the Tigers. And that's exactly what happened. I didn't think that was going to happen. I didn't feel that was going to happen, but of course it happened. Of course that happens. And here's the thing. I'm not a fire David Bell guy. I'm not doing that. That's not what my next little segment is about, of firing David Bell. But I do get tired of every time there is a criticism of the team and David Bell, people say, well, what can you do when you have half the roster out? What do you do when all these guys are injured? I know it's a constant evolving, season with everything that's going on, but at the same time, it is up to David Bell, who I do feel like, okay, yes, managers' impact on the game is significantly less than what it used to be. But when David Bell does a good job, when he gets a team that's supposed to lose 100 games and gets them to win, 80-plus games and miss the playoffs by 2 games last year, like that, he should get praise for that. I'm not a big guy on giving him a lot of criticism when they don't win a lot of games, but at the same time, if he's able to motivate them to go on the road and sweep the Yankees, but can't get them to win one dang game against the Tigers at Great American Ballpark in one of the final 3 series heading into the All-Star break, this isn't a fire David Bell segment, but I put a lot of blame on him. I put a lot of blame on David Bell this past weekend. Yes, there were a lot of key outfielders out. We're going to get to a new addition to the outfield, whether or not that's a big addition or not. We'll talk about that shortly. But I'm disappointed in David Bell. I know that's a wild take. I'm not putting it all on him, but I do believe if we're going to sit there and say, well, it's constantly not on him because of all the injuries, you can't talk about how well the team was playing and how great it was to go and sweep the Yankees and then return home and get swept by the Tigers. Dropping 2 or 3 would still be disappointing, but to get swept by the Tigers. Now you have a bad Rockies team for 4. We should feel confident about the series, and I don't. I don't feel good about this Rockies series. I don't feel good about the Marlins coming in. Usually the Reds like to put the dagger in you coming out of the All-Star break, and I feel like they're just putting us out of our misery, a couple weeks early here. That series was brutal. I'm glad Jimmy had a good time. I really am. Happy belated birthday, by the way.
Thank you.
But that was, in all seriousness, we could talk about injuries. We could talk about, it's a young roster. We could talk about all of these things. I don't care. You do not lose that series. You just proved you can go on the road and sweep the Yankees, play in a tough environment, get inspired play by some of these young guys who maybe are playing out of position or getting more at-bats than they're accustomed to getting. I don't really care. You don't go sweep the Yankees and then come home and get swept by the Tigers. It's a disappointing series. I'm not overlooking that. I'm not going to make excuses. That is on David Bell. That is on the Cincinnati Reds. And there's no sympathy here. I don't care about the injuries or anything else. You don't get swept by the Tigers when you're playing really well and you're coming home in a prime opportunity to take momentum into the All-Star break. And then I'm just pissed because I had to rewrite the entire show. That's another reason I'm pissed. But, Elly, I'm curious where you're at with this because I know you're down on the Reds more than most of us. But I think I'm meeting you at the same level, or maybe I've gone below you. I'm not really sure, but your reaction coming out of this very disappointing weekend, because I'm pretty pissed off. I'm not going to lie. That was such a disappointing series.
Yeah, I saw the David Bell hate on Twitter, as I do after every single time the Reds lose, and I thought it was ridiculous. Hunter Green, people wanted Hunter Green to stay in the game at 150 pitches. It's just not how baseball works. Nobody plays like that anymore. I'm very
Dusty Baker's online too.
And if you want to get mad, you can blame the league. Blame the way the league is gone, because it certainly is an era where you coddle pitchers. There's no doubt about it. Mainly because you don't want your starting pitcher going down. Similarly to as many of the starters have gone down to start this year. You want your guys healthy and ready for as many games as possible. Hunter Green threw 7 innings. He was at 105 pitches. And somehow we're going to send Hunter Green back when we have what has been nails this season, our 8th inning guy, Fernando Cruz, and our 9th inning guy, Alexis Diaz, as of late. Those 2 guys have been as good as any as of late. So why would you not trust those 2 guys after Hunter Green throws 105? It's outrageous to me. I don't understand why every single game we have to pick on David Bell. I'm not defending David Bell. I don't care for David Bell. Whatever happens to David Bell, doesn't interest me. It's a non-story. There are 15 issues with this team. The very last issue that I'm worried about is David Bell. And I'm sure, again, after this season unfolds and the Reds finish with 71 wins or whatever it'll be, yeah, maybe David Bell will get fired. I certainly think that it's time for a new look. I think eventually, after, 6 straight seasons of failure, then yeah, let's change things up a little bit. But I'm not going to sit here and act like this series was David Bell's fault. The offense doesn't show up. And the offense that can show up, they don't. I'm going to look at the box score right now, and excuse me right now. Blake Dunn, Edwin Rios, Santiago Espinal, Stuart Fairchild against righties. Will Benson's hitting 180 on the year. This isn't a good team. Mm-hmm. That's on David Bell. David Bell's supposed to just get the boys ready to go. Hey, Will Benson, can you not hit 180 today? Okay, coach, it's your thing. It's not how it works.
I would assume Bell told Fernando Cruz to get outs and not allow home runs as well.
Well, that's what I would think. But some people don't think that. David Bell coached him up wrong right before he went out and then blew the game. It doesn't make sense to me. Fire David Bell. I just want him fired just so I don't have to talk about it anymore. Just fire him. Bring in
But then
Freddie.
how long does that give us till they want to fire Freddie Benavides?
Well, it'll be immediate, of course.
Okay, yeah.
So and then the next manager, they'll get about a 1-year stretch too. And every manager, until we win a World Series, will get a 1-year stretch. And that's how baseball is. It's a thankless job. But the story of that series is it's been my issue. Casey's mentioned on the show. It's the inconsistency of this team, and it's been an issue now for three straight seasons. They're not good. They're not good. You can't trust them to be good. The Colorado Rockies have one road series win. One. They're going to come into Cincinnati. I think the Reds are going to play great. I think they're going to probably either win 3 games or 4 games. But then the issue is they'll do that, and maybe they'll even sweep Miami too. We'll go into the All-Star break on a 7-game winning streak. But I know the answer is going to come immediately following the All-Star break. They're going to get swept by the Nationals. Or if they get through that one, they'll get swept the next series. And they just match their good stretches with bad stretches, and I'm tired of it. That's what I take away from this series. I don't take away David Bell. They don't have nearly enough good hitters on this team to be considered a playoff team, and that's where the Reds are.
So real quick, because before I get to Jacob on that. So, yes, I came out hot with the David Bell stuff. I'm not anti-David Bell, but I do, when you get swept like that I put on David Bell, because that is the manager's responsibility to have a team prepared to play to where you have them coming home and to not get at least 1 game. Now, I know all the deficiencies that are stacked up against this team, but at the same time, if every bad team in baseball has deficiencies based on that logic that you put out there about David Bell, it's like no manager should ever get fired ever from a bad team. But all managers that get fired are usually from a bad team as far as that's concerned, unless you're Dusty Baker, of course, which don't get me started on that. But no, with this, David Bell wasn't the overall problem over the weekend. I get that we could dive deep into all of the issues that happened over the weekend, but just it makes me sick getting swept by the Tigers. Sorry, Jimmy. Getting swept by the Tigers is just you
they're not good.
You can't happen. So we're going to have continued reaction coming up here around the corner. The Reds made a late-night trade, an overnight trade last night, acquiring another outfielder. But the Reds acquire an outfielder, but they lose a couple outfielders over the weekend. And will this addition be enough just to stop the bleeding in the outfield? We'll talk about that coming up around the corner. But we did put out a poll question over the weekend. About the Cincinnati Reds with that trade deadline coming up on July 30th. What should the Cincinnati Reds do? And Casey's going to put that up on the screen now. What should the Cincinnati Reds do? Should they buy? Should they sell? Or should they stand down? All right, those are your options up there. Take a look at that's as of right now the results of everything going on. So we'll keep that in mind as we head into the next part of the conversation. Does this trade count? Does this trade go towards the vision of what you want the Reds to do by the July 30th trade deadline? We'll talk about that when we come back. Off the Bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers, right here on Chatterbox Sports on YouTube and 1410 ESPN Radio. And we are back. I have way too many guys giving me the finger. The pointer finger, at least. We welcome you back. Off the Bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers. Justin Kinner, Jimmy, Casey, Elliot, and Jacob with you here again. A lot of Reds talk today. Mark Sheldon, MLB.com, covers your Cincinnati Reds. He's going to join us coming up later on in the program as well. I envisioned our conversation going a lot different when Mark and I talked last Friday. After, the Reds coming off that sweep against the Yankees. I felt so confident about this show today, and it's basically been derailed because of Jimmy's Tigers as far as that's concerned. Before we get to the trade and the results in the poll question, just Jacob and Jimmy, just your closing thoughts on just this series with that Tigers over the weekend heading into this Rocky series tonight.
At the end of the day, this has to be the new expectation for the Reds. I mean, if you're going to beat a team like the Yankees, that's great, but we've seen them match every winning streak for basically the last 2 years with a losing streak of equal or greater value. I mean, this team cannot gain any ground no matter how good they play because they can't string together long enough stretches of playing good baseball. And, I mean, I understand. I hate to go back to the Hunter Green thing just because, that seems like a moot point in my mind, but obviously it's not. People are complaining about it like crazy. They send him back out for the 7th inning with 96 pitches. That in and of itself is crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, great on David Bell for making that decision. Hunter goes, I think 7 or 8 pitches in the 7th inning and
dominates.
And gets out of that with 3 up, 3 down, just incredible. And then obviously with 105 pitches, you don't put him back in the game. What are we talking about? And then
nobody does that.
Everyone's getting mad about the contact play with Blake Dunn. Trace handled the conversation with that one, so I don't need to stir that back up again. I think there were 12 total minutes of videos produced. So
while preparing a kid's birthday party?
Of course. I mean, he's the man of many talents. So I mean, I think a lot of this stuff with Bell and with the Reds right now is just it's what it's been the whole time, and it's just everything, all the anger about this team, what it's been for the last 20 years, is just coming to a head because we finally have talent that we expect to see change some of those results, and it's not happening.
All right, Jimmy, closing thoughts, and you get 20 seconds. How long should he get?
I wouldn't give him anything, but
give him anything.
If they won 3 games, he gets 3 seconds.
Yeah.
No, I'm very surprised that the Tigers swept this series for sure.
I'd be surprised too.
But I'm not as surprised that they won the series because, like I told you last week, we're still facing Reese Olson and Tarek Skubal, which those are 2 guys that actually give the Tigers a chance to win every single time they go out on the field. So it's one of those series where I'm not going to completely buy back in because I know that the Tigers aren't good and they hadn't had a sweep since the first series of the season.
That's a bad stat.
They hadn't won. they hadn't won back-to-back games in over a month. So
that's another bad.
With all that, I am surprised. But again, I
feel like while you're
I
know what you're doing though.
What?
He's bringing I'm not buying in because he's given all the reasons why his team is bad, but I feel like that's still a jab at Reds fans.
But because they just swept us.
He's so sneaky, dude.
But then people in the chat are saying they're gonna sweep the Rockies and then get swept by the Marlins. They're probably not gonna get swept by either of these teams, considering they'll be favored in every single game. I like their chances to at least win 1 in each series. And I think they're going to play well.
Yeah. At least 1 in each
2 and
series.
4 would really get the juices flowing against the Rockies and the Marlins.
I think they win. They have what, 7? It's a 4-game series and then a 3.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay. So 2 and 5.
No. I'm just saying. I don't think they'll. I definitely don't think they'll get swept by these teams. I think they'll win 5 or 6.
Well, we also said there's no way they get swept by the Tigers. And here we are. By the way, you missed out on a prime opportunity. If you remember, he kicked you in the man parts last week. He embarrassed you on national tube. Okay?
I can't talk junk today.
But you know what you could have said?
Lap.
If I was Elliot.
This is his day.
I would also willingly, openly admit that this was my World Series.
Damn it. I was setting this up. Yeah. I wanted you to say, oh, well, Jimmy's just happy because this was his World Series. But good job. Good job. Way to fizzle that out.
Jimmy said yesterday that it was Game 7.
Yeah.
Before he even walked into the stadium,
was
I'm
Game
treating
7.
this like Game 7.
Yeah. All right, I need the camera on Jimmy. I need it zoomed in, and I need you to do the sweeping motion one more time. Because this may or may not be used against you in other forms, in the future. So zoom in. All right, Jimmy, let's see the sweep.
There you go.
Oh, he's standing up.
Oh, look at that form.
Wow. Yeah, the girlfriend clearly does the sweeping.
No. Be careful. Be careful. I mean, whatever. It is what it is.
But kickers?
Off the bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers here. Justin Kinner, Jimmy, Casey, Elliott, and Jacob with you here on a Monday again. I figured we'd be talking a lot of Reds today, a lot of baseball. Again, the All-Star rosters were announced. The Reds get 1 All-Star, and that is Elly De La Cruz, who is making his All-Star debut in year 2 with the Cincinnati Reds. So we do have that conversation coming up around the corner. We'll also talk about that with Mark Sheldon. But you saw the poll question a little bit ago. About what the Reds should do at the deadline. And that trade deadline is coming up on July 30th. And I'm not going to lie. When I sent Casey all this stuff about the rundown for today's show, I thought that the conversation about the trade deadline might have shifted slightly because you sweep the Yankees. You have all these winnable series coming up, bad teams. I thought, man, this team's just going to be flying into the All-Star break with momentum. All right, and then it just brought us right back to where we were heading into the Yankees series, but that's just besides the point. But a lot of people seem split on what the Cincinnati Reds should do come that July 30th trade deadline. And the other question I have, do we have that video lined up too? Oh, right there, if I just look it up. So an interesting piece from, by the way, Chatterbox Reds, by the way, Trace, and of course, Nick and all the guys. They do a great job with this. It's it's a top 10 baseball podcast in the country, by the way.
That's right.
About that.
All right, like that's heavy hitter stuff right there.
It's true.
I mean, it's no grip it and rip it. Am I right, Jacob? It's
No,
grip
absolutely
it and rip
not.
It. I mean, but it'll do. But interesting piece here about the Reds general manager. Yes, everyone thinks the general manager is Nick Krall. It is not. The Reds' real general manager actually spoke and created a little bit of buzz. And Nick Kirby and Chatterbox Reds talked about this over the weekend. Take a look.
All right, so something today that I saw all over social media. I thought I'd bring it up.
The Reds have yet to commit to a deadline strategy. So there was a column from Gordon Whitmire of the Cincinnati Enquirer, who apparently everyone now believes everything that he says because of what was written. The big quote that came out was, Brad Meter, Reds GM, said, "We have to wait and see how we finish off this road trip and the homestand coming up, and then we'll see. We're talking about it. We'd love to be able to add, but realistically, we'll probably just have to see how it goes." So those comments come out. I know there was a lot of buzz about that. I think there was also something in the comment in the article that was behind a paywall. I didn't go look it up, where he said something about how TJ Frail's coming back and the old cliche of that's as good of a trade. Probably not the best way of wording these comments.
Yeah, anytime a general manager says, and by the way, shout out to, Meter. That's the real Reds general manager. Everyone's saying
he gets
crawled.
no hate.
He gets no hate.
No one even knows his name.
No, I didn't.
I have to admit something. I'm very unprofessional at my job. I completely get that. This happened at the Memorial when I went in hot. Welcome back. It was Kinner and Company. That's like Kinner and Company. It was our live Memorial coverage presented by, and then I drowned. I forgot the name of the sponsor, so that's happened before. But we're at Reds Fest. Me and Nick Kirby doing Reds Fest together, and then I totally spaced. I could not remember the general manager's name, and I went to go introduce him. And and we have Reds general manager. Everyone give him a round of applause. Completely. I mean, it was so bad on my part, but yes, that's the last time I heard the name of Brad Meter, the Reds general manager.
Yeah,
because
my favorite thing as a sports fan is when the GM or coach or owner or whatever says a player already on your roster is a good addition.
Well, if you remember when
Nick gets me going. It really gets me going.
When Nick Krall was in this position before, if you go back to the Dick Williams times, Dick Williams did that too. When Dick Williams was the general manager, things started going well, if you remember, and then he got called up and promoted to the position that Nick Krall's in. And then Dick Williams kept taking all the credit for all the success the team was having for that short little window. And then when things started getting bad, all of a sudden you started hearing Nick Krall's name all the time. Well, Nick Krall's like, well, I ain't no dummy. I'm going to do exactly what was done to me when Dick Williams was here, because this is the first time I've heard Brad Meter speak, and this is why I know things are not going to go well at the trade deadline, or it will for Jacob's take as far as this is concerned. But the fact that we haven't heard from Brad Meter all season, but now that he's talking and doing media, hits ahead of the trade deadline coming up at the end of the month, to me, he's just being thrown out to the Wolves. Nick Krall's not going to get the bad publicity. He's going to throw him out to the Wolves. That's one take I have as far as that's concerned. But we threw up the poll question one more time, Casey, if you could throw that back up there. The results of what the Reds should do at the deadline, whether you buy, and you compete for the wild card, you sell, try to get some prospects back, or you just kind of stand pat. You just kind of do what you've been doing and try to win games with what strengths you have while continuing to lose games for the deficiencies that you have. I shouldn't be surprised, but 40-something% all said sell. I wonder the shift in that. Billions and billions of votes, by the way.
That's
billions
true.
of votes. But 43 or whatever that is percent says that
43.8.
they should sell. My vision's bad, by the way. I can't even see them. Yeah, but nonetheless, surprised by those results or not as far as what the Reds should do at the deadline?
No, I think people are finally starting to come around and kind of side with me here and realize that this lineup's Swiss cheese. There's way too many holes to try to fill in this lineup and be a competitive team. You beat the Yankees. I think this would probably be a 90% buy poll if we put it out after that Yankees series. But, with no show on Friday and you come back on Monday, it swings the results drastically. I think if that poll, would have been out and we even win one game against the Tigers, I think most people are saying buy. But I think people are really starting to realize that this team just is so inconsistent and honestly bad that you have to capitalize on what you have now in guys like Jonathan India. And, obviously Cruz with a bad outing last time, but we were talking about him maybe getting into the All-Star game for a couple of weeks. He's second or third in reliever strikeouts. So, he's a guy that you might be able to get a moderate return for. I think you're absolutely looking to sell and just capitalize on these guys. This team's just not good enough.
I would trade Fernando Cruz as soon as possible. I really would.
For nothing.
And a lot of it does have, and maybe not for nothing.
You're not getting a lot.
Correct. You're not
getting a lot of reliever return. But I'm just saying,
right.
I'm not holding on to him because I'm not getting a top 30 prospect. I'm trading him for what the return can be, whatever it is.
Guys who have no long-term future here as the Reds continue to spiral, or whatever you call this, because it's not really even a spiral. It's just let's just all stay here and then go up and down and up. It's just avoiding the peaks and the valleys, and this has been the season of peaks and valleys, if there ever was one. I don't know how any time somebody from the front office speaks, the quote gets worse. That's been the issue with Nick Kroll. Now with this guy.
Who's this guy? Who's this guy?
Brad Meter. Brad Meter.
Get
his game.
Get Meter, dude.
I'm just gonna call him. I'm gonna call him this guy until he gets fired. But yeah, I don't know how every single time anyone speaks from our front office, it sounds like a horrible quote. But yeah, it's tough. I'm not surprised by the poll results because how much can you buy? If you told me you can buy a new roster, then sure. But I know that's not how baseball works, and it's not realistic to think they're going to do that. So at this point, I'd sell every piece that's on a short-term deal. That's an aging reliever, an aging player that probably won't be here in the future. That's who I would look to trade and see if we can replenish the farm system, which, to be clear, has not been very good.
Yeah, and I mean, I see a lot of people throwing around Candy's name for trades. Absolutely, I think that'd be crazy. You just sign him to a 4-year deal.
That's the one guy you don't.
There's no way you're trading Candelario. I just want to clear that up. I mean, there's just no way you're selling the guy you signed to a 4-year deal.
Why is baseball the one sport that, okay, for losing going into the deadline, like, I mean, every sport trades at the deadline, right? But a lot of times it's not really selling. Baseball is the only sport that we really call it selling, right? Like, oh, they're going to be just in, like, the NBA will give up on soon-to-be expiring contracts or just guys that are not a part of the future. But if we've talked about this Cincinnati Reds team and said, man, you know, we can't blame David Bell for the struggles of this team because this was not the team that we expected coming into the season. You know, obviously if Friedel is healthy for pretty much the majority of the season, if the season doesn't start with McLean on the IL, and, you know, they get him back. You know, if Benson actually lives up to expectations. Like, if all these pieces are trending in the right direction and this is actually a good team, we wouldn't be selling off all these pieces that aren't a part of the future. You would keep them. So if the future next year is, well, we'll be good next year because we're hoping that these guys are healthy, then why are we moving on from so many of these pieces? You know, like if Cruz is not valuable to the Reds this year because it looks like they may not be fighting for a playoff spot much longer, but if Cruz brings value to next year's team, which will be expected to make the playoffs, I'm just not a fan of that mindset. I know I'm going to be the minority on this because that's just what you do in baseball. It's constantly, well, hey, we're out of it for this year, so let's give up pieces that can help us win in the future. You move on from guys like that, and then we head into the offseason. It's like, well, the Reds might be in the market for a closer or for a reliever. And it's like, well, they had a reliever and they moved on from him. I'm just not a big fan of that. Moving on from guys just because the Reds are bad, and not bad because they're not a good team, bad because they're not healthy, or maybe they are bad. Are they telling us that they're bad? I guess that's my counter argument to that. I'm not going to lose my mind no matter what they do. If they sell, okay, cool. It's what you do in baseball. But I guess to counter your point about that, or both of your points, if you sell for the future, but you're telling me that this team's only bad because of the injuries, why give up good quality pieces that can help next year's team win if they're healthy, especially for a team that you know is not going to be super aggressive in free agency? I think it's a ballsy move. Just trade guys because, oh, we're not good this year. And then next year, oh, we'll beef up some other positions. And then, man, I wish we had Cruz next year, but we traded on from him. That's my concern. I'm not a big fan of that with baseball. In the NFL, we're bad. We're not, oh, man, the Bengals like last year. Well, Joe Burrow goes down. Well, damn. Might as well trade AJ Green. Damn. What the hell's wrong with me? Might as well trade T. Higgins. All right, you know, he's not a part of our long-term future. We might as well, we're out of the playoffs. We might as well just trade him. This season's shot. You know, the NBA, same thing. Baseball's the only one I know that because this season's shot, we're going to just sell everything, and that I'm not a fan of as far as that approach. But I know that that's how baseball works.
Yeah, I mean, with guys like Cruz, he's, 35 now? I mean, the cliff is here at some point soon. So, if the Reds aren't planning on competing for a World Series next year, that's what you have Montas on a 1-year deal with a player option. He's one guy I would look to sell, even though, you know, he's kind of regressed a little bit lately, so that would hurt. But, yeah, it's just guys that I don't think would play, and that's the thing is I feel like Fernando Cruz is most valuable right now, and it's the best he'll ever be.
And I don't like banking on the injury thing, but Reed does bring up a good point. Ian Jabot pitched the most amount of games out of any reliever, of any pitcher last year. Where is Ian Jabot? He's hurt. Fernando Cruz is going to probably eclipse that number. And I don't want to bank on injuries, but this is a 35-year-old pitcher. I have no doubt in my mind that at some point next season he might not be the guy that he is right now.
He's a 35-year-old pitcher who was a rookie at 34.
Correct. so I'm not gonna
movie script right there.
I'm not gonna sit here and complain and act like Fernando Cruz is he's the closer of the future. Nah, he could have maybe been the closer this year if Alexis Diaz continued to struggle, but Alexis has kind of found himself a little bit. So I'm fine. Get rid of him. Don't get rid of him. Staying still to me is the worst option of the three. I feel like if you're just going to stay still, don't make any moves whatsoever. I think that's the most realistic. but I do think that's the worst
Would you
option.
say they've still stood still? Like, Slater move is still standing still.
I would
right?
say that's not. I mean, that's
not
a,
fine.
That's a Sam Mole trade.
I agree.
That's,
I'm with you.
It's a nothing move, and I'm not going to get excited over it. He's a fine player. He can't get worse than the players that we've brought up, and that's no disrespect to Blake Dunn, Levi Jordan. I think he was sent to waivers too. So yeah, we can go around in circles here, but at the end of the day, I know what the Reds are. I've seen them for too long now, and they're just not very good.
Yeah, but they swept the Yankees, dude. They swept the Yankees.
And they swept the Dodgers.
They swept the Dodgers.
They
You're
went
right.
on a 12-game winning streak. They went on a 7-game winning
They
streak.
swept the Rockies last time.
They have so many tiebreakers against good teams.
They do.
I'm telling you, man.
Hey,
if
real
the
quick.
Dodgers scrimmed off 20 losses in a row, these tiebreakers are going to be good.
Hey, Jimmy, stand up. Show us the sweeping motion again.
No.
Jimmy, up. Sweep. There it is.
They put me in a bad spot.
Yeah.
We're clipping all these together, and you're just going to be dancing. Like that's
That'll
what
be
it's.
good. That'll be good.
All right, so the Cincinnati Reds, as we step away for a few moments, they acquire an outfielder last night in Austin Slater from the Giants, okay, in exchange for left-handed pitcher Alex Young. The Cincinnati Reds outfield picture right now is absolutely insane. It's not very good. I don't know how people feel about the addition of Austin Slater, but between injuries and guys just not living up to playing up to expectations this year, the outfield has been, well, a mess. So we're going to talk about what this addition for the Reds means. We'll get the guys' takes on whether or not this was a good addition. Did they give up too much to get him? Or, well, Jacob, he'll set the record straight when we come back. We'll also have MLB.com's Reds reporter, Mark Sheldon, coming up later on in the program as well. All-star rosters are out. Elly De La Cruz, a first-time All-Star, and what will be many more All-Stars coming throughout his career. We have a lot more Reds stuff to get into. It's Chatterbox Reds today. Chatterbox Reds is what Off the Bench is today. But more Off the Bench when we come back. All right, we welcome you back. Off the Bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers. Justin Kinner, Jimmy, Casey, Elliott, and Jacob with you here. And, of course, we're coming at you on 1410 ESPN Radio as well in Dayton. But we welcome you. We appreciate everyone tuning in to hang out with us today. Shout out to Tom Brenneman, dialed in. Of course, he had that show right before ours leading in. We appreciate everyone that tuned in early to hang out with Tom and then stuck around to hang out with us. We appreciate that as far as that's concerned. So, all right, so the Reds made a move last night. We talked about what the Reds should do at the deadline. The trade deadline's coming up on July 30th. It's actually going to be here a lot quicker than we think, right? Like it's July 8th, but I feel like it's just sneaking up on us. We've been talking about this deadline for quite some time because we just can't figure out we know what we want the Reds to do. Everyone has different opinions on what they want the Reds to do, but we still don't know what the Reds are going to do. We saw that clip from Chatterbox Reds a little bit ago with Kirby and the guys again on Chatterbox Reds, and Brad Meter, the general manager of the Reds, basically said, we're taking calls, we're looking into it, but basically giving us the old poor GM excuse of, well, we're going to get healthy, and those are going to be our additions at the deadline. That's why I did not think doing nothing was a possibility, but it sounds like that could technically be the case as far as that's concerned. But nonetheless, with that being said, the Reds did make an addition last night. All right, and I don't know if this move technically counts as, I don't know what category you'd put this in, staying pat, selling or buying. I'm not really sure how you look at this, but Alex Slater from the Giants, they get him in exchange for Alex Young. Okay, now he joins an outfield that is kind of a mess right now. You got Spencer Steer, who's playing a lot more first base than anything else right now because, again, more banged-up guys in the middle infield as far as that's concerned. TJ Friedel, he's on the IL. We're supposed to get an update on him either yesterday or today regarding the hamstring issues, so he might be back for, the 104th time this season. Jake Fraley out, again, with the family medical emergency list that, as far as that's concerned. Nick Martini, it's one of those things where I'm like, damn, Nick Martini's hurt, and Nick Martini's not good.
But it still sucks.
But it still stinks because they have no depth in the outfield right now. And then, of course, you have Will Benson. He's out there. And then Stuart Fairchild with the back issues, obviously missing yesterday's game. So they go out and add an outfielder in Austin Slater. Look, he's hitting 200 this season. He has 18 hits, 1 home run, 9 RBIs, 12 runs scored in 43 games and 90 plate appearances for the Giants. I don't know really what to make of this. They needed a guy in the outfield. They needed guys to take some at-bats from the outfield. So here we go. He has a pulse. I I've never seen that. I'm gonna let Jake take it from here because I know you were kind of laughing, like the both of you and Elly were like, can't believe that this is getting as much attention on social media as it is.
Yeah.
But we wanted the Reds to make a move, but this is the most Cincinnati Reds move that you can imagine here in July, the week before the All-Star break.
No, you're right. And Alex Young, I mean, he's a left-handed pitcher in our bullpen that we know has struggled a little bit with left-handed pitching. Mole's been good this year, but Justin Wilson has been a borderline liability for the last however many games. So when you trade a left-handed reliever, when that's a struggle, a lot of people get mad.
Yep.
Alex Young has pitched 2 innings for the Reds this year. I pitched 63 games last year, so everyone remembers the name. Alex Young was not in the mix with the Reds this year. He's been in AAA the whole time, and how many reliever injuries have we had? How many guys have we brought up and sent back down to AAA? And he's never been the guy to get that call. No. So, yeah, it's a nothing in terms of what we gave up. Slater has been pretty good in his career against left-handed pitching. He was traded for to be a bat against left-handed pitching. And looking at his stats from this season, the splits are exactly the opposite. So that's a little bit concerning. About 400 higher OPS against righties than lefties. He's hitting 174 average against lefties, 286 against righties. In his career, that is opposite. He's been a very good left-handed hitter, but yeah, I think you're just hoping that he's better than Blake Dunn, and that bar is pretty low. So I don't think it can be a bad trade. I think he's going to make the floor of this outfield unit while we're banged up much higher.
Yeah.
Hopefully those power numbers come back, leaving Oracle and coming to Great American, much smaller ballpark. So hopefully he can.
Hitter's ballpark.
Right, that's
Very
right.
much
Great American
so,
small
hitter's
park.
ballpark.
Oh, hold up.
Yeah.
Sorry. What, Jimmy?
No, it's definitely a hitter's ball.
Definitely a hitter's ballpark, Jimmy says.
The home run that the Tigers hit yesterday wouldn't have made it to the warning track at Comerica Park.
And what did the Tigers do over the weekend?
What is this?
The Tigers swept the Reds.
What is this bit? What is that? What are we doing?
He's jabbing at you guys.
You're jabbing at me. We're all on the same team over here. It's us versus him. Don't get on his team.
It's not that I don't like the Reds, though. I just think it's
Hold
funny.
up. What did you
wore
say?
An entire Tigers uniform over the weekend.
Yeah, and you literally
Fitted
said
and jersey.
too easy. You saw the video clip. Too easy. Reds stink. You guys, we were talking. We didn't even hear the end to that. If you guys go back and rewatch that, he literally said Reds stink. Reds stink, he says.
I've gone to so many Reds games this summer and worn Red stuff, though, to be fair.
He's a double agent.
Thanks, Jim.
Just means
always a pleasure. Yeah, this trade is a nothing burger. It doesn't interest me. If he can be half the player that Stuart Fairchild is, it'll be a fine trade, and that's all I can say. Is he going to be better than Levi Jordan, Blake Dunn, Edwin Rios, Santiago Espinal, Nick Martini? If he can be better at least a little bit than those guys at the plate, then it's an A-OK trade for me.
You want to know where I'm at with the Reds this year? I didn't even know who this Rios guy was.
I didn't know who he was.
And
either.
he pinch hit in the Major League Baseball game.
Did he get a hit?
They pinch hit for him
That's right.
before he even took an at-bat.
Correct.
So we're playing pinch hit matchups with these guys.
So it's, people were mad at, again, David. I don't want to get into the David Bell thing, but people were getting mad at David Bell.
I feel like we're getting back into the David Bell thing.
I know. You're pinch hitting Espinal. What are his options? What are this guy's? And I guess the other option, is the one player we haven't mentioned is Austin Wynns. So Austin Wynns, A+.
Doubles machine.
Love you,
Luke Maley. There's no way he's coming back to this roster.
Zero chance.
He can't.
Zero chance. But here's the thing. This is a trade that feels a little bit different than the Sam Mole trade because I feel like the Sam Mole trade was almost half-assing it a little bit. It was something where, all right, the Reds fan base wants us to do something. Let's go out and do it, and we'll just service the fan base to make everybody happy. Say we can do something. This feels like they were proactive. They knew. They looked at this roster and said, you know what, this isn't good enough. Let's try to make it better. Is Austin Slater a good player? I don't know. Probably not. He's the definition of mediocre. You look him up. He's just a mid player, and that's okay because the Reds have below mid all around the roster right now. So get this guy in. It's a fine move. It's a decent trade. I think there's higher upside, I should say, than keeping Alex Young, who will not play for the Reds this year, who wouldn't have played for the Reds this season. So bring him up, see if it works. If it doesn't work, you cut him loose and you keep trying it again. And you try it until the season eventually ends. and then you go into the lab next offseason. But no, you're not going to you're not going to trade for an all-star level player. It's just not going to happen. The Reds aren't going to do it, and no team's probably going to willingly do it before the deadline when their value is going to be probably worse right now than it would be at the deadline when teams are making last-second moves.
I saw people on the X.com talking about, let's just throw something together and trade for, I don't know, Luis Robert. Yeah, let's just do that.
Yeah.
Let's just go get the biggest name on the market.
Yeah, but do you realize how abused we are? Like, do you guys hear yourselves?
That'd be a terrible move for the Reds.
I hate adding talent to the roster. That's your take?
You're trading 3 top 15 prospects for a guy who's never played a full season?
Suspects, not prospects. Suspects. We don't know who they are.
Yeah,
you don't know who they are yet.
You would have loved to trade Elly and Marte and McLean for a guy 5 years ago?
Marte? You mean Juice, who missed 80 games this year for
Yeah.
selfish decisions? McLean, who might play this season? No, I do not want them to move on from them, by the way, just to be clear. But yes, good point there as far as that's concerned. But again, that's at the start of the rebuild heading in. But when you're this close.
How close are we? This team completely healthy was projected to go 500.
Look at this pitching. How many times have we talked about, okay, how many great pitching performances are they getting, and they're losing games by 1 or 2 runs every single time? I mean, like 5 more wins with just decent at-bats from better hitters. 5 more wins, that's a huge swing as far as the expectations of what they're living up to or not living up to this season. So I get that, but like your 2 points are not wrong because and you do what I do. Everything we say is based off of how we know the Reds operate. So based on how the Reds operate, you two are very correct. They're not doing that. But that's the problem. We bail the Reds out when we just adhere to that framework of thinking as far as that's concerned. And you probably have other reasons.
I just wouldn't want,
but
I value prospects.
If you had a value prospects, but like the Reds have always valued prospects for decades, and look where it's getting.
Look where it's gotten us.
Yeah,
best roster we've had in a long time if they're healthy.
Right now, yeah.
And where would they be?
If they were healthy, who knows?
Right now.
The Reds are 27th in batting average. They're 24th in on-base percentage. They're 22nd in slugging percentage. One guy is not going to make that better. This is a team issue. And again, when you lose half your roster, it seemingly feels like due to injury. I don't understand what major move we're going to do that impacts this team this year and will also somehow be able to help our team next year when everybody seemingly, God willing, is healthy again. So these are the things you have to look into. I know I'm somebody who wants to play for now right now. I get it. But at the same time, if you're going to play for right now and it's going to affect the future plans, which it might if you trade a Luis Robert type of guy, right? And you're trading away your prospects. So now next year's team seemingly would, in hindsight, could get worse, or in pre-sight, whatever it is, foresight. Anyway, the point is, realistically, I'm not going to expect them to do it because the Reds haven't done it for quite some time, and I don't expect this to change this year. Could it help? Sure, maybe. But there's a lot more issues than just one big superstar player.
What if they went out and got a guy like Brent Rooker?
Now that's something Brent Rooker, Austin Hayes, like multiple year team control, not quite playing up to their upside. I guess Rooker's playing really crazy, but like guys like Austin Hayes, like playing a little bit below expectation on a team that's competing now. I think that's
we're always going to be average.
About the peak of what I want to buy. Like I think it's a terrible idea for a team like the Reds to trade prospects for a star.
But you are a fan of a team and actively arguing not to go get star players.
Yes, because I think it's bad for the Reds. I think it would be detrimental to the Reds.
But Brent Rooker is also he was an all-star last season.
Yeah, I'd be fine with a guy like that.
He's had a great year this year. He's cheap. He'll have a couple years of team control, and
you're doing it too. He's cheap. I don't want cheap. I want good.
But
I want
he
cheap.
Is good.
I don't want to trade for guys that are making a ton of money.
Brent Rooker is good, and he's coming from a team like the A's where you probably wouldn't have to give up that much.
Right. I want the Reds to spend money too, but they're not going to. So instead of saying let's just hope the Reds spend money because that'll never happen, let's go into it saying, you know what, let's try to get the best deal possible for a deal that I think the Reds potentially could make.
It's like I feel like that's a great deal for a guy that can play in the outfield and be a consistent bat on a team that doesn't have a lot of consistent bats.
Also, the Reds spent a ton of money this last offseason.
Just go up there and give some good quality of bats. Just foul some off.
But he's good.
Still towards the bottom of payroll, though. They did spend money. But
it's one of the most spent off seasons.
One of my favorite moves the Reds ever made was Jimmy the Trevor Bauer move years ago.
Yeah.
And the reason was, ultimately goes on to win a Cy Young, and it just was kind of meant nothing because that stupid 2020 COVID year. But that move, what I liked, it was one of my favorite moves the Reds ever pulled off because it was about, okay, we get him. might help us the back half of the season, but this is a move to put him with Luis Castillo, to put him with Sonny Gray, and guys like that heading into next year. It was like a win-win as far as that's concerned. And the Reds are mathematically in the picture. I know they still have a lot of deficiencies as far as that's concerned. But, again, you don't want to give up prospects because prospects are for the future. But what prospects a couple years ago did we not want to get rid of that we didn't get rid of that ultimately never led to what we want this team to ultimately get to? And I know these are the same arguments we have all the time. So my bad. I apologize. But we'll move on from that part as far as that's concerned. So, look, it's going to be interesting heading into this deadline what they're going to do, what they're not going to do. But I think we could all agree. We could all agree on, or we could all have our opinion of what we want them to do. But I think we can all agree on what they're going to do, which is nothing of substance, nothing of flair. We can all agree on that, I think, right? Like
I'm still holding out hope that they can sell. Trading to Jonathan India, trading to Montas, that's a splash. I think they could do that.
I don't think
it's going to happen. I don't
think they'll trade Jonathan India. Just because I know they will get more backlash than anything that they could do is trading your best offensive player at this moment. I'm not saying it would be the wrong move to do. I'm just saying from their perspective, I think at some point they are trying to save face up there in the front office, and trading Jonathan India would be the last straw of this season for this fan base attacking them.
That's what I've continued to applaud this front office for, though, is in this iteration of the Reds, building this iteration of the team, they haven't bowed down to fan aspects.
That's why they moved on from Winker.
Right. Yeah. They wanted Winker here. They wanted to
deal.
re-sign Castellanos. Those have both, Winker obviously having a great year so far this year, but those have both turned out to be great moves by the Reds to let those guys go. Trading Luis Castillo. He's been great in Seattle. No one wanted to trade him. The return we got from him has been incredible so far. That was a great move. For
different circumstances. Like, so the Winker thing, people forget Winker was bad post All-Star break.
Yeah.
That year because him and Castellanos, obviously, Castellanos wanted a big contract. The Reds expected to be bad a lot. Like, they didn't expect that season last year, right? So, like, of course, it made the Reds look worse when they were competitive. And, man, I bet you wish you had Castellanos now, right? Like, at that time. But, like, having Castellanos play at a high level for a team that was rebuilding didn't make sense. So I understood why they didn't, commit to him long term. Winker, they made that decision because he was just god-awful in this back half of the season. I think they were always kind of keeping an eye on what his value would be, and they made out pretty well there. And Luis Castillo, same thing. Everyone said last year, man, imagine what Luis Castillo would be like in this rotation. Again, paying a lot of money to a pitcher to lead a rotation that was going to be filled with first-year, second-year guys in a rebuild wouldn't have made sense either. I agree with you. I actually applauded the Reds for all of those. When people were pissed off and mad that they moved on from Winker and Suarez and all these guys, I'm like, those were actually good moves. And unlike that first rebuild when they moved on from Brandon Phillips too late and Jay Bruce and Frazier, and they moved on time this time. Like, they moved on too late, and they didn't get any good returns the last time.
And I applauded the Reds front office last offseason for not going out and buying, not going out and making a big trade because I thought this team was well ahead of schedule, and it would have been a mistake to trade prospects. So hopefully they do it again, and they don't listen to the fans, and they sell, and they take the lashings. And then when the team's better next year and in 2026 and in 2027 and we continue to compete with a healthy roster and a better farm, the fans will get over it. That's my hope.
Real quick, Casey, what are and if you're working on something, my apologies. But I've ignored everyone in the chat. Still working on getting better at that. My apologies. But what's the vibe of the chat? I see Molly's in there. She said earlier, I did see from Molly, fire David Bell. That was from our conversation earlier. So she's on the fire David Bell train.
Most of the chat is, I think.
Yeah, I think everybody is. I think everybody's on the David Bell.
She wants an Elliott bobblehead. I did see that. We should get that
figured
out, right?
I'd love one too.
I'd stand in line for that one.
Please, let's make it happen, Captain.
Let's get a sponsor.
Let's do it.
All right.
I'm down for anything. If we want to do a bobblehead, I'll talk to the Reds and we'll see if we can make it happen.
But Casey, what's the vibe of the chat right now?
Vibe of the chat, I would say that it's lukewarm to the idea of the Reds season being over. I would say that some are saying extend Bell, some are saying fire David Bell.
I think it's just Evan saying extend Bell a lot.
You might be right.
And everyone else is saying fire Bell.
You might be right. I would say that there's a lot of unhappy fans. And that poll, by the way, I think, yes, it did win. Sell did win, but it was only by like a few percentage points. It's still pretty much very divided. I feel like the fan base right now is very divided on what they should do. Obviously, I hope that they don't do anything drastic. I think this move, to be honest with you, if they did a couple of these types of moves where you get you get a guy that's going to be good depth and he'll be gone later on, he's not going to be a major part of this roster, I think that's fine. I think getting a couple of guys like that would just help out the depth because we're dropping like flies here. You got to do something to keep depth around. Otherwise, you're going to have a guy out there done who's batting 63 or something like that.
63, yeah.
Not good.
Not good. So,
but he's fast.
My thing is
contact fast enough.
Yeah.
Contact plays.
Another one.
You got those written down over there?
I don't. I'm a big Jimmy fan today, dude. He's
Thanks, James.
He's picking his spots. I like it.
Thanks, James. My only thing is eventually this has to turn around. I have to see the fruits of the labor here, and eventually, hopefully, it's next season. But this season has been a train wreck to no fault of anybody. It's when half the roster gets hurt, who can you really blame that on? And you can try to say the medical staff, but I have a hard time believing the Reds' medical staff is out there injuring our players. Could it be the case? Maybe. I have a hard time believing that's the case. Next year, next offseason, I want somebody in the outfield. I want precautions for when this seemingly unhealthy roster gets unhealthy again at some point next season. Do I think every player like next year will be hurt like this year? No, I do not. I think this is a one-off thing, and how unlucky it's been kind of crazy. But next year, this coming off season, get in the lab, do something, try to make next season worth a damn. That's what I would like. Am I throwing the talent on this season? Maybe, probably. I've just seen the team for so long.
I will never argue with you again about your attitude towards the team, because last week, although I felt like I won because the Yankees got the sweep, and then it was a very humbling 3-game series with the Tigers, I'm like, oh, that's why Elliot's abused right there.
Yes.
Right there.
Thank you. Well, Drew Garrison, $5 super chat. Smug or pompous, wearing a national champions shirt when your team hasn't won one in over a decade?
Drew's national championship before this year, they didn't even print T-shirt yet. He didn't have the chance. Yeah.
Yep.
A lot of dates on there.
It is nice, though, having a shirt that has a bunch of national championship dates on it that don't have an asterisk next to it. I mean, he's a fan of a team that is the Barry Bonds of college football.
That's right.
Wow.
That's right. No, because they weren't actually good. Barry Bonds was good and cheated. They were bad and cheated.
They had to cheat to win. Barry Bonds just was already great.
And he just also cheated.
Right?
Yeah.
But, like, the Michigan fans that sit there and say Barry Bonds is not the home run king because
that might be the new Elvy Marte of college football.
Hey-o. All right, Off the Bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers. 1410 ESPN Radio, Chatterbox Sports on YouTube. Drew Garrison supports a cheating national championship team, the biggest cowards in all of college football. We will be right back.
Nice.
We could do, sorry, my bad, but do your... Casey, take care of the housekeeping items. I didn't stick to the rundown. My apologies. Everything got kind of changed a little with the stuff over the weekend. But if you want to get to that, we can roll with that.
Yeah, we'll do the housekeeping items.
Were you not ready? We can go right back into the radio mode, dude.
No. I rolled the stinger thing. I didn't need to, I guess.
You don't want to give yourself the stinger? You don't want to come in on like a cool entrance, Casey. We can get another sounder.
Walk out like Undertaker.
Yeah. Oh yes.
Undertaker.
And then in the backdrop on the green screen, it could just be Jimmy just doing the sweeping motion
just
the entire time that you're doing the reads. Yes, like we're on to something here. And I could set you up better. It'd be like Colin Cowherd, who he goes like, oh, so and so with the news. All right, Casey with the news. There you go.
There we go. Yeah, sure. Boom. Casey with the ads. Yes. Let's start with Pawnee Water today. Pawnee Water. They have natural limestone filtration, unlike the artificial processing other brands use. The result is a healthy alkaline water, and some say the best tasting water in the world. Visit Pawnee Water at PAHHNIwater.com so you can buy this great tasting water. It's delicious. Goes down the gullet nice and smooth.
That's right.
Encore Technologies. They provide IT solutions for a data-centered world with a suite of services for mobile computing, desktop data center, supporting both centralized and work-from-home computing modules to improve efficiency and
productivity.
Productivity, that's right, Jimbo. The path to innovation begins right here. Visit encore.tech. And our ticketing sponsor, Game Time app. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code OTB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code OTB for $20 off your first purchase. Download Game Time today. Last-minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. And, of course, just going to list out some of the things that they've got going on around town here on Game Time. Rockies at Reds tonight. Tickets as low as $2.
Let's go.
That's got to be some sort of sale. And then $5
No, I don't
the
think
night
so.
after.
Nope.
These
$2?
two teams are bad.
Well,
Two?
$2.
One more than one.
I
One
might go to
less
the
than
game.
three.
Luke Bryan later on 13th at River Bend. That's
think I
a
might be
pretty
going
good
to
deal.
that.
$45. I might go to
Really?
that.
I might.
And then, of
I know too many of
course,
his songs.
Charlotte FC at Cincinnati on the 13th. That's $43 as well.
Wah, wah.
These are some
Didn't
really
they
good
just
deals.
play?
You should check them out.
Really consolidating the schedule here.
Charlotte or
No, FC.
FC?
Playing
Yeah.
2 games in a month? Jeez, can they handle that?
I mean, that's just a terrible bit.
Yeah,
They
it's a bad
play
day.
like every Saturday, and then occasionally on
Well,
Wednesday.
yeah,
Except for the 2 month-
3 Saturdays in a row.
Except for the
2 month break.
stretch, yeah.
Catch a little breather. And obviously, you don't have to play if your country's playing. God forbid.
You guys,
God forbid you commit to
Well-
the team you signed a contract to.
Well,
Yeah.
you know what? They actually do go on a break, but not from playing. They just take a break from MLS play, and they play in the Leagues Cup,
they do.
That's right.
which is on Thursdays and Monday. So looks like Elliot can maybe join us.
No, I
Since it's not
can't
on a
wait
Saturday or Wednesday.
because Elliot didn't come to my birthday. Then he can come with Casey and I to go watch FC play NYCFC.
Yeah, where
in
FC
August.
will sweep.
Yeah,
What night is this?
it's like August 5th.
Oh,
you probably won't be busy.
Actually, I have something.
Do you have something?
Yeah, I have something.
It's funny that you say that. I think I'm at the same thing Jacob's at.
Dang,
That's-
unfortunate.
That's a shame.
Why are they playing on a Monday?
Because it's the League's Cup. Did you not
Leagues
listen
Cup.
to Casey? They play 3 seasons at the same time. Get it together.
Sorry.
It's a tournament, in-season tournament.
It's a
It's
tournament.
not a
There's
season.
the Copa, the Euros, the Gold Cup,
The
Yep.
Supporters Shield.
the Supporters
that's
Shield.
FC
really-
doesn't play in Copa though.
No.
Maybe they should. USA stinks.
That's true. That is true.
I saw Canada advance further than the United States.
Oh,
What a
yeah.
joke.
Well, we have the
They
Stanley
have
Cup.
a.
We have the Stanley
That's-
Cup. So
It's
you're
all
right.
right.
Yeah.
You're right.
Canada has a roster full of MLS players too, which is just.
What if
even
Mexico
more.
wins the football championships, Canada wins the soccer championships, and we have the World Cup? Then we're just even.
Ooh.
I don't know
I'll
what I'd
take
do
World
with
Cup
that.
for that.
I don't
Global
think I'd- I don't
equality.
think I'd- I don't think I'd
Global
like that.
equality.
By the way, do we have a list of all the Nutcutter members?
I can get that. Do you want me to get it out right now?
No, not this second, but I just want to, our guy Trace, he wanted to make sure in the chat to everyone that we have 6 tickets for tonight's game. Okay? 6 tickets for tonight's game for the Nutcutter members. All right? Let me make sure I read that correctly so that we're all on
3
the same
sets
page.
of 2, I believe.
Yeah, 3 sets of 2 or 6 individual tickets. Am I right, Elliot?
That's right.
Well, he said he's giving them to pairs.
So-
3 pairs.
3.
Yeah.
Yeah, but no, we will do at the end of the show, Casey. We'll do a drawing from the list of the Nutcutter members.
Yep.
Correct?
All the active members. There are 57 total members as of right now. So there's going to be a lot of names to pick through here.
So are all 57 of those guys and gals hanging out with us in the chat? Because should we shrink it down? Like we should do like a roll call, maybe. I mean, what would we do? Go, what's the way to go about this? We're just rolling.
I think you got to be in the chat today.
Yeah,
I think you got to be in the
I think you
chat.
have to be in the chat right
Let's
now.
reward the Nutcutters that are tuning in today. We're also going to have more giveaways throughout the week, not just Reds tickets, but Riverbend tickets
Oh, I would like
for
that.
upcoming concerts.
I'd like to-
Elliot's burners are going to enter.
Unless Reed comes in.
I'd like to throw my name in the hat for that.
Unless Reed
I would too.
calls.
Actually.
So,
What if we just draw for the Riverbend tickets amongst ourselves? We can
Yeah.
do it live.
Well, because then if he wins, you'll just give his tickets away.
That's right.
I've seen it happen.
That's right.
It was brutal. It was brutal. So as far as that's concerned, it's
gonna be hot tonight,
We'll
though.
have incentives for new members as well. Colin, shout out to Colin. He went. We got him hooked up with those Reds tickets over the weekend. He got to see the Reds get swept. So there's that. I don't know if we punished a new member or not, but that's what it feels like. We punished Colin. Yes.
I have some inside baseball. Mark sent me an email asking. He thought this was for the radio, not for this show.
But it is on radio. So let me shoot him.
You
a
want
note.
me to? Okay. I'll let you talk to him.
Yeah, let me figure that out. Go back to housekeeping items while I shoot him a note.
Yep.
Casey, I didn't do the FC segment. I had it ready in my headlines. I know they skipped over it.
We were going to, though.
But the FC segment, I had it typed up, so they won 6-1
Yeah,
over Miami. Miami didn't have any of their good players, but
of course not.
They did win 6-1. Are they all the way back? Because now they are in first place in the table.
I mean, were they ever gone to begin with?
Well, yeah, they didn't win the championship last year.
They didn't win the championship.
But they were but they won the Supporter Shield. So
Oh,
they were the
that's so
best team in the
cute.
league.
They were the best team in the league last year, and they're going to compete for the MLS Cup this year. I mean, they were right there in the semifinals. They
didn't even make the championship?
No, they lost in the semis.
They lost in the semis to the
eventual
winners.
champions.
Yeah.
I thought I went to the semis.
No, that was the quarterfinal.
Oh my God!
What are you doing?
You went?
I thought that game mattered.
So one of our lovely Swaggy Plague in the chat. He's not. I don't think he's been in the chat here as of late because he rotates his shifts and whatnot. But he gave us tickets, me and Elliot, to go to the quarterfinal matchup. I don't remember who it was against. Was it Philadelphia? Was it the Union? I don't quite remember which team it was, but we ended up going, and it was a great game. It was a fun watch. Elliot enjoyed himself, and then after that, he just went right back to hating on FC. I don't see how you could do that after they hosted you so nicely and treated you so well. But
I'll consider going to that Monday game on the 5th. I'll consider it.
To be fair to you and to Jacob there, I don't even know if they're going to play their best players.
Excuse me?
I mean, what are we doing?
Why do we do this?
Every single time we talk about FC Cincinnati, we do our little bit over here. You talk about how good they are, and then you add something at the end. It just makes it even more ridiculous.
But to be fair, they are very good.
They will still be good,
Yeah.
even without their best players on the field.
Yeah.
They just, I don't know what they're going to do this year. They might actually try to compete. They didn't last year because I think that they were they were gunning for the
MLS
Supporter
Cup.
Shields. But they might actually try this year.
Is that bad? Like winning the President's Cup's bad in hockey? Or has the MLS not been around long enough?
I'm not sure.
I have no clue.
I don't have the statistics on that.
I don't have this. Yeah, I don't have that in front of me. But yeah, it'll be a good time if you guys go. It'll still be packed house.
I've never argued that. I've never argued that.
Especially,
I'd have a great time.
especially when Jacob saw the game that I went to, when it was 4-3, and you
yes.
said how great of a time you would have had. You were
wouldn't-
glad you didn't go because
That has never
you would
been
have
a
had an
debate.
amazing time.
Yeah, I would have a great time, and I would not be able to hate on the team and the program anymore, which would stink.
Very nice stadium too.
If I remember correctly, last year Leagues Cup, Inter Miami was in the finals, right? That was when Messi came around. I'm pretty sure.
I believe so. Yeah.
And I don't think FC really tried last year, but I think they might actually this year. Who
Miami
knows?
won. Roger says.
Miami did win. Yeah. Okay.
Did I hear you spreading some propaganda that it wouldn't have mattered if Messi and Suarez played?
Propaganda.
They would have still won. I don't know if they would have blown them out, but they would have still won.
What'd they win? 6-1?
6-1.
Yeah, Messi and Suarez would have scored 7 alone.
No.
8-6 Miami.
No.
You didn't.
What is
you
it
didn't
to
watch.
you?
You didn't watch the game. You have no clue. They couldn't even hold possession.
But
Jacob.
yeah, but Messi would have been able to.
You see, by the way, you see
That's the
Trace.
thing.
You see
They wouldn't have
Trace-
been able to get to Messi.
You see, Trace came in and said, watching world-class players in these cups play soccer, must admit, it's a bit entertaining. So
In the
when-
Copa America and Euros.
The Euros have been great.
The Euros have been
The
great.
Euros have been great.
watching
I enjoy
the star
the Euros.
player, but unless you
Yeah,
put the Reds hat on,
if you're watching
average
the
is
star
way
players,
to go.
you're obviously not watching the MLS.
Kind of like
Jacob's like, I don't want to watch. Jacob doesn't want to watch star players though. He likes the average ones.
It's true.
It's true.
It's true.
Should we get back to the radio?
We should get back to the
Did
radio.
Do we lose our guy?
I don't think we've lost him yet. We're just clarifying.
Okay.
My signature has the time of my one show, and then this was for this show. And I think he's been on this show before, so I think he's just so we're getting it ironed out. So we'll get rolling.
I don't know if he's been on this show before.
With Tom, I believe he has.
Did he?
I
Okay.
think so. Or with Kirby, one of the two. Nick or Tom. He's been on with one of them. So maybe it'll be with us too. We'll find out.
Maybe. 5 seconds of silence.
Imagine being Drew Garrison. Imagine your team finally wins a national championship and you don't even get to enjoy it because everyone just constantly reminds you that your team cheated. Like, you know what I mean? I feel bad for him. Has a host ever sent a super chat back? Like, is that possible? Not a refund.
It's possible.
Not a refund, but like
you could just pay to chat
I'll
in
just
your
Venmo
own
him.
chat.
He sent 5. I'm going to send him 6 because it's sympathy for supporting a cheating national championship.
You're a
team.
good man.
Yeah, But it has been 10 years since Ohio State has won a national championship, as indicated on this shirt. But when they win it clean this year, well, Drew will probably disappear for a bit.
I'll get him a shirt.
We should get him a shirt.
I'll get him a shirt.
Shirts without asterisks on them. Those are the shirts to get.
That's
Those are
true.
the shirts to get. But we welcome you back off the bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers. Casey just killed it with the housekeeping items and the ads. Just want to throw that out there.
Yeah, appreciate that.
You brushed off the polo, so everything looked good. It sounded good, so shout out to Casey. Jimmy's been over there just every once in a while, just coming in with some zingers for old Elliot over here. The sweeping motion.
I'm happy for Jimmy. I'm happy that he gets to do this today.
Yeah.
Can I say I'm not? Am I allowed to say I'm not happy for Jimmy?
You're allowed to say.
Okay, I'm not happy for Jimmy.
You shouldn't be happy for me because
All I'll say is, I've been bashing the Tigers for the better part of a month now, maybe more, and Jimmy deserved it ever since I started the bit. So I can't do it anymore. I'm not going to make fun of the Tigers any longer. When you sweep the Reds after the Reds sweep the Yankees, it's just like, yeah, I'm over. It's over.
but they still are bad.
Huh?
They still are bad. The Tigers
I won't
are.
say it though.
Okay, fair.
You'll have to hear it from you.
But I will admit it.
We have
I
some
can tell you
breaking
about the
news.
Detroit
Breaking
crime
news?
statistics.
We have
though.
breaking news.
Are we sure?
There's breaking news.
We have breaking news.
Dan Hurley
Lakers.
of Lakers fame. 5 or 6 year, $50 million contract extension to remain in Storrs, Connecticut. That is a lot of money.
Is he the highest paid coach in college?
Almost certainly.
I don't know who else would have it.
So the thing about a school like
Boeheim,
UConn, I
maybe?
know they have a
Boeheim's
football team, but like
He
they're
retired like 3 years ago.
they're what?
He said Jim Boeheim. Jim
Oh my
Boeheim
God.
retired years ago.
I
Yeah,
mean,
he did.
his pension might be pretty good. I don't know. We talked with Mark Adams the other day. We talked about the pay for college basketball
No, I was
coaches
saying of all
just
time,
going
though.
down. But no, the thing about UConn with all the rules changes with like this, now these schools could pay up to $20 million towards whatever. Like when you're a basketball school, like 20 million's a lot, right? Like as we know, but like when you're a football school and you have to balance that between all the sports and your two big money makers, basketball and football. But when you're a basketball school and all those dollars could be allocated towards that, like UConn's like that could be a powerful program. I mean, it's already a powerful program.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong. It's been a powerful program for decades, but that's the type of program right there that when all their money and resources, like they can, with the football team, they can decide that they want to be a football school. Like, what do you do if you're UConn? Do you have all that money? So with that new law, now $20 million, you are allowed to your university can actually pay up, $20 million up to that little salary cap, if you will. Like if you're a UConn, do you invest into the football team and make that be a power, or do you just continue piping it all into the basketball
They have
team
been.
and just
They've put some money into the football team lately. They hired Mora, the old.
he's been there for a couple years
Yeah,
though. I'm just
they've,
saying,
they've gotten better. I think you're definitely going to still focus on basketball.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's a
you're,
basketball school.
You're barely an FCS team. So,
But
I mean,
but with that though, with that money, that's what I'm saying is like now you can invest into football.
yeah, but I don't know. I think if you win 6 national championships in 20 years, that kind of makes it your decision for you.
Oh, I'm not saying
you're
you're
just
wrong,
a
I'm just
basketball
like-
school, whether you like it or not.
But I am curious how universities will start to. Will they, like Dayton, obviously, they're a basketball school, right?
Yeah.
Do they decide, hey, we want to kind of let's see if we can take this football thing up?
What
a little
conference
notch
is
or
Dayton
two.
football in?
What is that? The Pioneer Football League. I got that one right. Holy crap!
Yeah,
I
put you on
really
the
didn't
spot
know
there.
at first. When you asked, I hit panic mode, and then it
That was
came
good.
to me right away.
Bill
So-
Self gets paid $9.6 a year.
Okay, so it's a little less than that.
It's a little less than that.
Now,
Sheldon's good, by the way. We are good to go. What's that, Jim?
One thing that is interesting is I just texted my buddy who's from Connecticut, and he said, doesn't matter, no coach contract does, because he could just leave anyways.
That's
in
true.
the future. But at the same time, it's like he did turn down 2 massive job offers.
If you're
this
not
year.
taking Kentucky, what job are you taking?
and you're
in
not
college
taking the
basketball? And
Lakers.
if you're not taking the Lakers, what job are you taking in the NBA?
So that's where I wonder,
Right.
is there any chance that he leaves?
I think the only chance of him ever leaving was them not giving him a competitive offer with the other top coaches.
Right.
Because they hadn't until now. And now that he's 2 or 3 in the highest paid coaches list, what is there to go get?
When Coach K retired, right, and they set up, what's their head coach's name now? Why am I drawing a blank? Sorry, Duke's head coach.
John Shire.
Shire, right? So Shire was named the coach in waiting heading into that final year, right? Like you have to think if you're Hurley, you're just pissed because you just missed out on that. Like, if Hurley had won back-to-back national championships kind of heading into that run, like, I think it wouldn't have been Shire. I think Hurley would have been the next
Dan
coach
Hurley at Duke would be...
That's quite a philosophy
I mean, that
change.
would be incredible. It'd be terrible for everyone else in the world because they would just never lose. They would literally never lose.
Yeah, that would stink.
I mean, but no, like, I don't know. Okay, he turned on all these big jobs while at UConn, but they were big jobs. Like Kentucky, if you don't take the Kentucky job from UConn, is he ever? I'm not saying he'll never leave UConn, but at the same time, what are you taking?
The Lakers.
And he turned that down. But I think he knows that job will be open in 2 years. LeBron hasn't played for a head coach longer than 2 or 3. I don't think he's played for a head coach longer than 3 years.
Well, he won't be in the league for 3 years.
That's
LeBron. I mean,
maybe he will
2-year deal.
2-year deal.
Get a rollover deal.
He's done.
He'll go out Michael Jordan. He'll get that Vegas team and then play for his team.
What, go out like Michael Jordan, get suspended for gambling, get your father killed, and then not
come back? Whoa! And even Jimmy said, "Whoa!" And that's usually Jimmy coming from. Oh, I forgot. You're a bronsexual.
Oh yeah. Big time.
I like LeBron. I wouldn't classify myself as a LeBron sexual, but
it's not LeBron sexual. It's Bron sexual. But yeah, LeBron. Are you a LeBron?
Team USA's official account tweeted out the Olympics with the picture of the roster. Yeah, it's incredible.
But finish your point. I interrupted you. Sorry.
Oh, I was gonna say maybe in like 2 to 3 years he'll come and coach the Pistons when he can make that team his and run it how he wants. Maybe.
I mean, he's on the Pistons for quite some time. To be fair, I mean,
maybe they can go after Bronny. The Pistons. I forgot to read his stats.
Yes.
21 minutes played. He scored 4 points. He was 2 for 9 from the floor.
He played against the Pistons?
No.
Oh.
He missed both free throws that he attempted.
Victor Wembanyama's first summer league game, 4 points, 3 of 20 from the field. Well, so, summer league shows a lot.
Bronny is Angel Reese, dude. He's no Angel Reese. You know? How about that? That is getting like some legit like hatred on social media. Like
there's some vitriol.
The WNBA Rookie of the Year debate has people chatting.
Yeah, it's real close.
Well, that was the dumbest argument I've ever. We all know what clip you're talking about, and if you don't know, I don't know her name. She was on
Monica McNutt.
McNutt.
Great
that's right. How did I forget McNutt?
Awesome.
And McNutt went on the radio or on ESPN and said Angel Reese should win the Rookie of the Year because her team is going to finish higher in the standings.
Yeah, great logic.
They're ahead by I think half a game.
No. The Fever are ahead of them now.
Oh.
So
Fever are ahead of them now.
So her take just volleying back and forth.
Well, I hope she sticks with it today. I didn't get a chance to catch first take this morning, but I'll look it up. Hopefully she says Caitlin Clark's winning it now because she's in the lead, right?
That's what you would think.
Well, that's how it works.
With her rationale, it would.
By the way, so you tune into ESPN right now. So all the main hosts are off for the month. For one, Stephen A's not coming back till October.
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys caught that or not, but it's a great power play on his part because he caught a lot of heat. He said a lot of stuff that's true that people just don't like, right? Like when he said no one ever heard of Monica McNutt before him, people got mad. Right? But he wasn't wrong.
No.
He wasn't wrong. In fact, the only reason we're talking about Monica McNutt right now is because of some other wild, crazy take that used absolutely no logic whatsoever. So all these people are taking credit for the success of that show, of First Take or whatever, but he's taking this long hiatus off. I think he's just rooting for those ratings to plummet. But everyone hates on Stephen A. They say, get rid of him. They don't need him. Think of how many quality journalists you can hire for the amount of money that Stephen A. is wanting. The bottom line is, Stephen A. moves the damn needle. Stephen A. gets viewership. It amazes me. It's always Skip Bayless and Stephen A. The two guys that every time you talk to people, I hate him. They're both horrible. There are so many people that do not find that to be the case because they're the two biggest names in sports media, whether we like it or not. It's pretty wild stuff. And Pat McAfee, he's at least likable. He's up there as well, which when Pat McAfee got hired and everyone wanted Stephen A. Smith to be mad at that, he was super happy because he's like, hey, I'm happy he got paid that because that's where I'm starting in my negotiation.
Yeah. Bet you didn't think we'd have a Stephen A. Smith segment today.
We did not. The rundown.
I mean, we're still on the first blip of that bottom bar.
We never went to headlines.
It hadn't moved. I know.
Still haven't done headlines yet.
Can we get a clip, Casey, of can we get Jimmy at the bottom, doing the sweeping motion to sweep the bar over to the next one? That would be awesome.
Can we end this segment with my headlines?
Yes.
We have
Elliot.
we have
Second
3.5
bar.
We have 3.5 minutes.
All right,
3.5
minutes.
Yeah, this is the
Here's what you missed.
second to last segment of the show.
Worst segment of the show, but we appreciate those who have remained with it. We're going to get back to the All-Star conversation coming up around the corner. But here we go. Again, Off the Bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers. It is time for Elliot's Headlines.
Elliot loves three things: Joey Votto, David Bell, and leading off the bench with top headlines.
How about the Reds?
How about
We'll
them?
start with the Reds because I typed it up, and I'm going to just continue to read it. They get swept by the Tigers 5-1 yesterday. Ashcraft, we didn't talk about Ashcraft. He pitched decent, I guess, 4 2/3. He allowed 1 earned run. Fine, mediocre, decent performance. Tariq Skubal, obviously, was his career high in strikeouts. 13 strikeouts yesterday, 7 innings, 3 hits, 1 earned run. Zach McKinstry, who entered yesterday's game, hitting almost 150, hit a home run, went 2 for 4, and brought in 3 runs as well. The Reds' offense mustered up 4 hits. One of those was Austin Wynns with a double, the first Red to hit 4 doubles in his first 6 at-bats since 1960. I don't know the name of the player that did it. The
Probably
Reds,
like Leather Shoes McGee.
yeah. The Reds face the Rockies 4 games starting tonight at 7:10, which we will be giving away tickets. It is Abbott versus Feltner. Ryan Feltner is 1-7 with a 5.6 ERA. Abbott is 8-6 with a 3.2 ERA. The Rockies have won 1 road series all season long. And by the way, I did mention this. Elly De La Cruz is the only Reds All-Star. I was kind of upset about that because I thought Hunter Green deserved it more than Paul Skeens. But I'm sure we will discuss that in the next. Oh yeah, and we'll discuss it in the next segment. Around the league, Mets rallied to beat the Pirates 3-2. The victory. Lindor hit a 2-run single off of Aroldis Chapman in the 9th inning to win it. Cardinals crushed the Nationals 8-3. Wilson Contreras hit his 2nd home run of the series yesterday against former Red Derek Law. Braves shut out the Phillies 6-0. Lopez went 6 innings, allowing 2 hits, striking out 6. Braves offense hit 4 home runs. Marlins, they defeated the White Sox 7-4 as Jake Berger hit a game-winning 3-run jack in the 9th. Guardians beat the Giants 5-4. Bo Naylor's pinch hit 3-run home run since the Guardians passed San Fran. The Twins walked off the Astros 3-2 on a Christian Vasquez home run. Cubs shut out the Angels 5-0. Wesneski goes 6 1/3, only allowing 1 hit. Rangers destroyed the Rays 13-2. The Royals, they dismantled the Rockies 10-1. Bobby Witt went 4 for 5 with 3 RBIs and a home run. The Orioles win 6-3 over the Athletics. Brewers crushed the Dodgers 9-2. Dallas Keuchel 4 1/3 innings, allowing 3 hits, 0 earned runs, and he also walked 5 guys. But nonetheless, decent start, I guess, technically, for Dallas Keuchel. Red Sox shut out the Yankees 3-0 last night. Thank you to Jacob's Uber driver for giving me the wrong play there.
Yeah, that's dumb.
Because that parlay was a massive parlay.
I
for
took
me,
it too.
and it's terrible. PGA, Davis Thompson wins the John Deere Classic. He shot 28 under par. WNBA, as we kind of just mentioned there, Angel Reese did break the double-double record. The sky fell to the storm. Reese had 17 points and 14 boards in a losing effort. Her 13th consecutive double-double, record-setting. And I mentioned FC Cincinnati, good for them. Kubo had 2 goals. Acosta, Assad, Venezuela, they each had 1, so good for everybody.
Is he going back-to-back MVPs, Casey?
At this rate, yeah.
The Golden Boot.
Not the Golden.
The Golden Boot.
The Balloon Door.
Ballon
The what?
d'Or.
The Balloon Door.
The Balloon Door.
Yeah, like balloon and then open the door. That's the soccer MVP.
Really?
Yeah, Balloon Door. It's great.
Ballon d'Or.
Oh my God.
Ballon d'Or.
How about that? The Balloon Door. But that's it. That's segment 5. We've gotten through 5 segments here on this Monday.
That was segment 5?
Oh
That
yeah,
was
I think
sure
so.
is.
I'm pretty sure.
What was segment 4?
I don't think we're on segment 5.
Oh!
Are you sure?
Wow.
Elly Radio over here.
I'm almost positive we are, guys. It's 11:30. There's no way we wouldn't be on it.
We started late.
We didn't start that late though.
It's really 10:08.
Well, we'll figure it out.
We sure will. We always do.
Yeah, we
We
do
always
have.
do.
We have
maybe we are.
Reds
Maybe we
beat
are.
writer Mark Sheldon confirmed. He'll be jumping on with us coming up here in about 5 minutes. So keep that in mind. We'll chat all things Reds with him. We're going to talk about, of course, Elly De La Cruz's All-Star selection, the only Cincinnati Reds selected. And Elly,
No.
What?
David Bell.
I'm sorry.
All-star David Bell.
I forgot.
True, he is an all-star.
You want the all-star manager fired.
All-star manager.
That is crazy. I mean, I'm like, LeBron running a near coach of the year fired right there. I mean, like, come on. But yes, we'll talk all things Reds with Mark Sheldon coming up around the corner. And I like Elliot's take about Hunter Green being more deserving than a particular National League pitcher on the National League All-Star roster. We have all of that coming up off the bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers. All right, and we are back. Mark Sheldon, Reds beat writer with MLB.com. We'll chat with him coming up here in just a few moments. But the Elly De La Cruz, the Reds' lone all-star selection, and I don't think that's much of a surprise. Look, I heard Tom's show a little bit ago. They were talking about whether or not they liked whether every team should get a selection. I'm not a fan of that. I do not think that every team should get a selection. I just don't. I don't like that. I mean, I know some people will say that, okay, you need that because, of course, that's an opportunity to market these players around Major League Baseball. That an argument could be made for that. I get that. But, I mean, before baseball really started, putting star players in every ballpark, as we talked about last week, if it's coming down to one game to market your entire sport, it's probably not going to be that effective to begin with. But that's besides the point. Elly De La Cruz, no doubt about it, deserved to be the representative of the Cincinnati Reds. However, some were a little surprised that the Reds didn't get too many. People thought that Elly and Hunter Green would probably get the nod as far as that's concerned. But Elliot had a very interesting take. You believe Hunter Green should have been on the All-Star roster, not over Elly De La Cruz, but over arguably the best pitcher in baseball. Explain.
Paul Skeens has pitched in less games, and I do think it does matter for this specific occasion. Hunter Green has pitched great all season long. Paul Skeens has as well. There's no doubt about it. But Hunter Green has done it and done it for longer this season. I think that should be the tiebreaker if there is one. Again, Paul Skeens, great up-and-comer. He's going to be great for a long time in Major League Baseball. Saying that for this season, I have a hard time justifying why Paul Skeens was in over Hunter Green.
Well, if you guys remember last year, there was a lot of talk about Elly should have been on the All-Star team last year, but everyone kept saying,
didn't play enough games.
He didn't play enough games. And I remember that was a debate. There was a lot of national radio shows and sports talk shows were picking it up too that believed Elly should have probably been on the roster last year, but everyone kept, because he was the most electric player in all of baseball. I mean, he gets called up in early June and was the most electric player for that good month and some change leading in to to basically this past weekend, which was the All-Star selection weekend, of course. And there was a lot of people that felt very strongly about that, but to people's credit, they stuck to, but you can't just let him in to let him in. That's too gimmicky. You got to earn your way into the roster. Had he got called up earlier, probably would have made it, and I agreed with that. But you're right. Here we are a year later, and a pitcher in Skeens with the Pirates obviously gets the nod as far as that's concerned. But I know that may not be a popular take, but I agree with you. I agree with you wholeheartedly on that. Is there anyone out there? Elly deserves to be in the roster, but if you could only pick one Red, that's the Red, right?
I think
no doubt about
clearly. I think any other Red that gets on that roster is on that roster because of the every team gets an All-Star rule. Elly's making the All-Star game with these numbers regardless of who he plays for. He's an All-Star this season, cut and dry, point blank, whatever you want to say. Elly De La Cruz is an All-Star. So I think he would have been on regardless of who you played. I thought Hunter should have been on too, but Skeens wasn't the one I was going to have out. I think Logan Webb being an All-Star this year is ridiculous to me. I mean, Skeens is 5-0 in 10 starts to start his career. It's unbelievable, and all of his stats that aren't counting stats are better than Hunter's pretty much across the board. But Logan Webb's not better than either of them. So.
Oh, no, and trust me, no one's saying, look, Skeens arguably best pitcher in baseball at this point,
I think
right?
He should start for the National League.
But I think it was to Elliot's point, it was about the longevity, being called up late. That type of thing. The same arguments were being made for Elly last year. But, hey, he hadn't played long enough. But to your point, Hunter Green's numbers outstanding and had been there since basically from the beginning of the season as far as that's concerned. But, all right, again, Off the Bench presented by United Dairy Farmers. Justin Kinner, Jimmy, Casey, Elliot, and Jacob with you here. Again, Off the Bench on Chatterbox Sports on YouTube and 1410 ESPN Radio in Dayton. 1410 ESPN Radio, Dayton's radio home for Cincinnati Reds baseball. The Reds trying to put the sweep behind them. No, not the sweep over the Yankees. Them getting swept over the Tigers over the weekend. Great American Ballpark. And we're coming on now to talk about that as well as Elly De La Cruz and the All-Star selection and everything else, all things Reds baseball. Mark Sheldon, Reds beat writer for MLB.com. Mark, I appreciate you taking time and jumping on the show with us. Happy Monday. How are you doing today?
Doing okay. pretty hectic, but it's trying to keep the house going before work, but it's all good.
So last week when we were talking, back and forth about you coming on the show, I had a completely different vision about our conversation. I felt great. The Reds just swept the Yankees, and they're heading into what many people see as three easy, winnable series heading into the All-Star break. You've been doing this a long time. You can't, the ebbs and the flows of a long season. But how surprised were you after that type of sweep over the Yankees on the road to come home against, not a very good Tigers team and not just lose the series, but to get swept? That had to be a little bit of a surprise for you and everybody.
I won't say surprise because they've done this a lot this season where they've gone one step up and 2 to 3 steps back. So in one sense, it wasn't a surprise. But yes, I thought maybe this time it would be different because they really did play almost flawless baseball from start to finish of that series. They controlled everything. They pitched well. They never trailed in any of the games. And they did all the right things for the most part. So I was a little surprised that did not carry them into the next series. And for them to have that kind of letdown was a massive disappointment. And it's a big problem because I think this is the stretch here between now and the All-Star break where they really need to show whether they're going to be worth investing in as a buyer at the trade deadline. And right now they're not showing that.
With that being said, again, you have that trade deadline coming up at the end of the month, and I know they still have a couple more series left. They have series coming out of the All-Star break. All-Star break's next week, so I don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves, but we did put out our poll question about what are fans expecting the Reds to do. Obviously just stand pat, just stick with what you have, and just see if it's enough to remain in the race in the back half of the season. Do you sell? Do you buy? What do you do? As far as from where you're sitting right now, obviously we talked about how things kind of shifted after the loss over the weekend, but where are you at right now with what you think this team is going to do and what they should do in your opinion?
Sorry, hang on. Tate,
you're totally fine.
Sorry,
oh,
got noise
is that
in
your
my
dog?
house.
Is that your dog?
No, it's my son.
Oh, sorry. Didn't mean.
Sorry about that.
No, I'll re-ask the question. No, just for
you.
the expectations coming up at the end of the month. You've been doing this a long time. You kind of know how the Reds operate. What do you think they're going to do as far as being buyers or sellers or just standing pat? Or do you think that they might try to be a little bit more aggressive than they were at last year's deadline? How do you see this playing out at the end of the month?
It's hard to say because it really is dependent on their performance. And if they can somehow win the next 2 series emphatically, like maybe go 3 or 4 against Colorado, sweep the Marlins, then they're still in a position where they could be viewed as buyers. If they go out and lose 2 more series against 2 really substandard teams that are not performing well, then I shouldn't say substandard, but I would say definitely non-performing well. And that would be a problem. And that would tell me that they're not in position to contend and they should probably start selling. But when they sell, though, it will not be a dramatic fire sale like it was a couple years ago. I mean, they're going to keep their core, the Elly De La Cruz types and Noelvi Martes are not going anywhere. But the guys they can move are the pitchers they signed on short-term deals, whether it's Frankie Montas, whether it's Nick Martinez. Maybe they have a couple of veteran relievers, whether it's Brent Suter or Buck Farmer that could be moved. They can make some maneuvers that way to a team if they needed to and then figure it out from there. But I still think the one thing they have going for them is that this National League is so wide open. Nobody's really running away with it, and it does buy them some time. When you're only anywhere between, they've been as close as 1 game, they've been 3, 4, or 5 games, you're not out of it. And as the Mets showed, you really need 1 or 2 good weeks to get back into the race because the Mets were left for dead, and now they're very much in it. So that makes it hard to make these decisions, and you got to kind of wait and see what happens.
MLB.com's Mark Sheldon, Reds beat reporter, hanging out with us here again off the bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers. Again, Reds back in action tonight, coming off the sweep over the weekend against the Tigers, trying to put that behind them and regain momentum heading in to the All-Star break next week. Reds general manager Brad Meter, a quote was popped out from him over the weekend about kind of what basically everything you and I just talked about. Obviously, it's all going to matter of where the Reds are at, as we get closer to the deadline. But one thing he did bring up too is, we're going to get some additions just by getting healthier. Obviously, keeping an eye on TJ Friedel. This team's pretty banged up. I know McLean, we're entering that timeline of where we could have maybe possibly expected to see him back. Where are the Reds at right now health-wise as far as that's concerned? Because that will obviously play a key role too, and not just how they produce on the field, but just how the roster is structured heading into the back half of the season.
Well, the lineup-wise, on the lineup side, they're a mess. Besides the guys that you mentioned, They lost Nick Martini over the weekend. They think it's going to be an extended period with a thumb injury. Jake Fraley is right now on a family emergency leave. Stuart Fairchild apparently had a back issue yesterday. And that's partly why they acquired Austin Slater from the Giants overnight, because they really are short on depth when it comes to their lineup. And there really is nobody at AAA that they could bring up right now that would be a huge difference maker. And I'm not sure what Slater will necessarily be a difference maker, but he's got experience. He's been there. Even though he's not having a very good season, he does have a track record of some better results. So they needed outfielders as well. So I think this will at least get him through this period. But Friedel he still needs to get an MRI to see where his healing is. But if things go well, he could be back sometime after the All-Star break. Nick Lodolo on the pitching side could be back as soon as tomorrow if everything is going okay. With his injury, he's eligible to come off the IL. So they do have some guys coming back, but unfortunately, Friedel's been somebody they've kind of pinned a lot of hopes on as being a big spark. And when he came back, it was pretty good, but he's not been able to stay on the field. So it's been very frustrating for them. And then Marte, they were waiting for his suspension to end, and he's been struggling as well. He's still a rookie, and it was probably a lot to expect him to be a big boost to their lineup.
Hey Mark, I'm gonna sneak in for a question, but I've been watching this team now for quite some time, and you mentioned that they're still alive for the playoff race, and mathematically they most certainly are. But I look around here, and I've seen what this team is for the majority of this season, and towards the end of what they were last season. I don't see a world where they can compete in a playoff series. Not with the current lineup that they have now. Does it make sense fully to buy right now, or is it a lost season? Do we mark it up as a bad luck season due to injuries, and we move on to next year?
I don't know if you can go so far as to say it's a lost season, and also I don't necessarily subscribe to your view about October, only in the sense that they've beaten all the good teams. They swept the Dodgers. They won a season series over the Phillies. They obviously swept the Yankees, who I know are reeling, but there's talent there certainly, and they did very well against them. So, last year you really just look at the Arizona Diamondbacks, who stunk in the second half, kind of backed into the playoffs ahead of the Reds by 2 games. They won 84 games and went to the World Series. So in this format of the playoffs with the expanded extra wild cards, you have a chance if you get in. All you have to do is get in, and you can figure it out. And I'm not saying that the Reds have a great lineup, because they certainly have been so frustratingly up and down. You see what they do against, they had a big offensive outputs against the Cardinals and then get shut out the next game. They have a huge series against the Yankees and then don't do anything much against the Tigers. So the offense is there. It's just they haven't been able to sustain it consistently. They need some guys to step up. Jonathan India has been doing a great job at that, but he needs some help. And they need some guys to kind of get going again. Candelario was doing really well in June. He's been dealing with a knee injury, and it's kind of hampered his production. And so they have some opportunities to get some guys going, and it's there, but I still think it's slightly too early by a week or 10 days to decide whether this is enough to carry forward and try to buy.
Mark, how refreshing has it been to see the play of Jonathan India? Because this is a guy that obviously Rookie of the Year. It takes a step back in his second year, obviously, battled injuries and then trying to get it going again last year. And then coming into this season, didn't even know if he would be a Cincinnati Red. His name was being brought up in every trade rumor out there. And for him to remain a Red and to kind of get through the shaky start to the season and to now be one of their best producers right now, just how nice is it to see not just him producing, but also just playing a big role in the leadership side of this team as well?
Well, they certainly needed him. They were waiting for it. I think what he's been saying is he just feels healthy again. If you remember last year, he missed 39 games with plantar fasciitis in his foot, and it really hampered his ability to move. And it even carried into the off season. And then he had the little tendon, the little piece of tissue tore, and that had to heal in the off season. And he didn't really come to spring training 100%. And then you throw in that he was trying first base in the outfield on top of it. I think for him, it's just he's feeling good. He says he feels good. He feels like he's got his legs under him. He's only playing second base, which I'm sure provides him some comfort. And I'm sure he's very comfortable back in the leadoff spot. And you throw all that together, and who knows if that's what is enough to get him feeling where he needs to be. But he's also a very selective hitter. If you look at the numbers, he's one of the best at not chasing outside the strike zone in all of baseball. And you take that and his health, and that's probably why you're seeing what you're seeing. And it's definitely helping the Reds. It's helping them stay afloat. I know they haven't obviously had a good series, but they are staying afloat in large part because of him.
Mark, Jonathan India is such a fascinating guy to talk about too, because the one reason his name was being brought up in a lot of trade conversation, it was just because of when this team's healthy, they have so much depth in middle infield, and obviously right now that's not the case just because they're beat up so much. But moving forward with Jonathan India playing this way, have we heard the last of the trade rumors, do you think, when it comes to Jonathan India, or is he a mainstay of you talked about the core a little bit ago, is he a part of this core in your opinion moving forward?
Well, I would say probably not. I see you could make a case that he would get moved. He's got a very friendly contract. He's on a 2-year, $8 million contract with a year club control before free agency after that. So he would be a guy that teams would want for sure. If you look at the fact that Matt McLean will get healthy at some point, if it's not this year, it certainly will be next year, and he will be penciled back in as the second baseman. So I think long term, I don't see India being in the plans just based on who they have. But at the same time, for all the talk about all this depth the Reds had in the offseason and how they're going to get all these infielders to play, now they're missing guys, and that depth will come in handy. And if they don't sell, he's going to be a big part of what they need to do this year. And they could figure, if McLean somehow comes back, they can figure it out. You just got to find a way to make it work for now, and then see what happens. I just think you can never have too much depth, and I think the Reds have showed that this season.
Mark Sheldon, Reds beat reporter, MLB.com, awesome enough to give us some time here today on Off the Bench. Elly De La Cruz, send us out with this. Elly De La Cruz named to his first All-Star game, of course, and what will be many more to come. But pretty special seeing the video yesterday when they told him for the first time he's going to be an All-Star. I don't think it's a shock at all. Elly is the representative of the Cincinnati Reds.
No, it's not. You also go by the fact that people want to see excitement at these games. I know they're exhibitions. They're supposed to be fun, and I don't know if there's anyone more fun on the Reds than him to watch, because you just never know what he's going to do, whether it's a triple or he's an inside, maybe an inside the park home run for him, and then you throw in the power, you throw in the arm, you throw in the speed. He's the league leader in stolen bases. So he can do everything, and you just can't not watch him. He's appointment television. So I think he's a deserving star. I think they got it right with only one All-Star. You could have made a case maybe for Hunter Green, maybe for Andrew Abbott, but really he is the All-Star.
Not a surprise that it's only Elly, but were you expecting more than one Red to be named to the roster when it was announced yesterday?
No, not really. Like I said, you could have made a case if Hunter Green had maybe one more opportunity to pitch before the vote came out, because obviously he had a great last start and he's had a nice season. But you also have to weigh in the fact that I don't know what the other teams with the minimum one player rule. You have to kind of fit the puzzle together just right in order to make it work. So I think one, based on where the team is this year and the fact that there really hasn't been a lot of offensive contributors overall, sustaining it throughout the whole season. And Elly's been. I know he's been up and down, but if you look at his numbers, he's got a nice OPS. He's got the stolen bases. He's on pace for almost 30 homers and 80 steals. That's a pretty good year to me. So I think he's deserving, and we'll see if the Reds maybe add another guy if there's any injuries or somebody has to opt out of the game.
All right, good stuff. Mark Sheldon, Reds beat reporter, MLB.com. Mark, thank you so much taking time and hanging out with us today, and enjoy your final week before you get a little bit of a break, right? Because news stops once the All-Star break gets here. So.
Thanks very much.
Yep, take care. All right, good stuff. That was Mark Sheldon again, Reds beat reporter, MLB.com, here on Off the Bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers. Justin Kinner, we got Jimmy, Casey, Elliott, and Jacob. We'll close out the radio side of things when we come back. More Off the Bench next. All right, and we are back Off the Bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers. Shout out to Mark Sheldon, giving us some time. Appreciate everyone who's hung out with us on the show today. A lot of Reds. It's basically been
all Reds.
All Reds. And I think we all kind of figured that'd be the case after, again, the emotional, just the shift, the roller coaster, which basically has been the Reds since April, right? Sweeping the Yankees, I bought back in. I fell for it. I got duped. Then they get swept by the Tigers. Then they make that trade last night. Not a big trade, but a move nonetheless. Heading into this final week before the All-Star break, and then Elly gets named. There was just a lot of Reds news. I appreciate Mark coming on. The one thing he said, I'm a big Jonathan India guy. I do not want to see him go, but it does sound like everything you've talked about, Jacob, it sounds like I don't think he's moved at the deadline at the end of the month, or maybe he is, I don't know, but it does not sound like, based on our conversation with Mark Sheldon, Jonathan India does not seem like he's going to be a part of any long-term plans, but he's the T. Higgins, if you will, of the Cincinnati Reds.
We've known that for at least 2 years now. That
I just don't like that.
Jonathan India is not. I mean, you take out 1 month of baseball, and he's a below-average defender and a below-average bat.
Yeah,
he had a great month. I'm not taking anything away from what he's done this year.
The only chance he would have is if Noelvi gets busted for steroids again.
Or McLean has a massive setback in his injury rehab, which McLean was cleared for baseball activities over the weekend, so seems to be trending in the right way for him.
You would have to lose a key piece of the core, and that's just not – I don't think that's realistic. I was going to ask him I was going to ask Mark what his thoughts are on the injuries and if they're going to continue, if you're worried about them continuing next season, because the depth certainly was an issue this year, and I think that's crazy because we came into this season thinking they had great depth. I thought the Reds were ready to go, and they just weren't, because when you lose 3-4 key pieces of your lineup for most of the season, most of the first half of the season, it was never going to be a fruitful season. But yeah, it's what he said is correct. They're not dead yet. They're mathematically most definitely still alive. If there is a push, they have some pieces still in the lineup that are contributing on a nightly basis. Jonathan India, Elly De La Cruz, Spencer Steer, Jameer on a usual regular basis. It's just the bottom half of that lineup that's been so bad and what they've needed help for, and that's why you go out and get a guy like Slater. Will he be good? I don't know. If I were a betting man, I'd probably say he's going to be a fine player. I think he's going to be better than what Harrison Bader was last year, and I think he's going to be probably a little worse than what Stuart Fairchild
Someone
is.
in the chat said, I'll bet everything I have that he's just a warm body. Well, that'd be great because we don't have a lot of warm bodies in the outfield.
We don't have a warm body.
Right.
So it's a more than fine play.
Yeah, and so there's some familiarity too with him, because I guess that goes back with Slater with the Giants. He's been there for 8 years. I guess when David Bell was with his positional role there, they overlapped a little bit there. So that's some of the familiarity that David Bell has with him, and one reason that they advocated for that move as far as that's concerned. The 200 hitter, it's interesting. A lot of people jumping in. Like, the thing is with these moves, we don't know a lot about these guys half the time. Everyone sprints towards the internet to try to get as much information to see what's on the back of the baseball card with these guys. And what's the one thing everyone, oh, great, another 200 hitter. And the thing is, I know average isn't everything right now, right? There's so many other formulas. You got to go to college to know what all these formulas are to track who's good and not good in baseball. But, it's wild to me. I saw Colin Cowherd tweet this out over the weekend. There's only right now 11 guys hitting over 300 in all of Major League Baseball. Yep. So, we keep throwing out the average. What's the – so it used to be 300. 300 was the good hitters in baseball hitting 300. I know there's more to it than just average right now, so calm down on my stat nerds out there. But what is a respectable average in today's baseball? Because you know what? I beat up on Votto for far too long for the 220s, 230s, but I feel like the 230s, the 240s, that's your median right now, if you're lucky.
I think we've matured as baseball fans in the sense that there is no acceptable average. A 230 can be fine and 230 can be bad.
Yep.
It just depends on what else you're doing outside of that. I think that's been great for baseball to get beyond just purely counting stats.
OBP is usually
OPS.
my metric. OBP and OPS are the metrics that I usually use. Now if you're hitting 150, something's not working.
Right. Yeah.
So
Mendoza still comes to play.
Mendoza's still in play. Kyle Schwarber's going to hit 225 on a season. He'll hit 40 home runs, and it'll be okay.
And if Kyle Schwarber hits 186 with 40 home runs, I still don't care.
Yeah, Adam Dunn was just ahead of his time.
Yeah, right, exactly.
All home run or nothing.
So I don't put too much stock into that, and I saw somebody justifying. I think it was Reds Daily, our former friend Reds Daily. I think he tweeted
out.
Well, he's still a friend, but he's no longer with us. And he tweeted out.
He's alive.
He died?
Well, no, he's still alive.
He's tweeting from the grave?
He's no longer a former friend who's no longer with us?
I didn't even mention his name. I didn't even mention his name. I just said Reds Daily.
It's going to be hard to find that tombstone, apparently.
All right. Well, I'm going to continue with my point. He tweeted out that some guy was like, well, Elly's a 200 hitter, and he hasn't been good all year. And it's like, if you can't just look at batting average anymore, it's very evident. Elly De La Cruz is the perfect example of why you don't use batting average as the main metric to who is a good player and who's not. I still use batting average. I still want Elly De La Cruz hitting 260. And to answer your question, I think that's my number. If you're 260, I consider you a competitive hitter. And 250 by all means. And then again, like Jacob said, that metric's skewed anyway, so who cares? But yeah, Slater, will he do anything? Probably not.
Maybe.
That's the thing. He can't be worse than point. What is Blake Dunn's average?
0.65.
0.65. Can't be worse than 0.65.
I guess you could.
You could.
But
unless he goes a full Asdrubal Cabrera and doesn't get a hit in his first 50 at-bats. But I don't think that'll happen.
I was dribble down the third baseline and get thrown out at first.
So 11, and again, what did Reed just say? Where did he go? The good old days of 1968, only 6 dudes finished about 300. So we're at 11 right now. Last year, how many do you think finished? How many total hitters in baseball do you think finished with above 300 average?
A lot, I would assume.
Qualified hitters?
It's not a lot.
5. I'm going to say...
It's close to what he said.
6.
Oh, is it?
5, yeah.
That'll be more than this.
That's
year.
my guess.
9.
9
guys. So, and then in 22, it was 11. 21, 14. In 2020, it was 23, but again, that's a truncated season because of the 60-game COVID year. But in 19, it was 19. 2014, it was 17. 2015, 20 guys hit 300 or more. But again, you go back to those times. So if the average doesn't matter, and who cares if you're hitting 300 or not? I mean, why was that a metric that everyone valued back then and did a good job of depicting who was good and not back then? But now that number doesn't matter.
The people that lead the league in batting average are still usually among the best players in the league. There's just better ways to.
Well, maybe the pace of play. Maybe there is no such thing as the pace of play rules that change. Maybe it's just everyone sucks at hitting now, and that's why.
Well, the pitching's just exponentially better than it's ever been.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
And by the way, I don't actually think that.
The reliever, the bullpen. I mean, you're having guys coming out of the bullpen throwing 105. Like it's the bullpen's relievers, starters as a whole. It's better than it's ever been. I mean, we talk about Hunter Green not coming back in after 100 pitches. Starters going 150 pitches was worse pitching. Like again, for the batter, like your pitching is falling off as you continue to go. Well, great ones, Nolan Ryan, whatever. Sure, they were great and they did that consistently. That's awesome. You were tailing off at the end of the game. It's just the reality of it. The human body fatigues. Yeah. So when you're bringing in 2, 3, 4 guys in some of these teams out of the bullpen that are going 3 up, 3 down, throwing 100 miles an hour with a slider that breaks 20 inches, it's like, what do you want the hitters to do?
Yeah, nothing. I think there's only 2 teams, by the way, 2 teams in Major League Baseball right now that are hitting greater than 260 as a team. And that is
collectively.
I think collectively, and that is the fewest in the past several decades.
The worst team batting average-wise is winning their division right now. The Mariners.
How about that?
Hitting 218 as a team.
The Astros will win that division, but
probably.
Yeah.
They always do.
All right, well, this has been on the radio side. Now, we are wrapping this up on the radio side, Elliot. The radio side. So that wraps it up on the radio side. Off the bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers, 1410 ESPN Radio, Dayton's radio home for Cincinnati Reds baseball. Shout out to Mark Sheldon, giving us some time a little bit ago. If you missed that conversation, we'll have that coming up on the Kinner and Kev show here in just a little bit. So keep that in mind. But yeah, a lot of Reds talk today. We'll be keeping a close eye on what the Reds do. This is a big week. It's the biggest week of the season for the Reds, and I know there's games after the All-Star break, but I think this is going to give us that true indication of who the Reds are heading into the break, coming out of the break with the trade deadline looming as far as the direction and what they plan on doing. So, closing thoughts on the radio side, of course.
Yeah, man. Woo! Reds.
Go Tigers.
I said we got to win 7 of the 10.
That's, Jimmy, the sweeping motion one more time as we close it out.
You want me to do it again?
Yeah, sweeping motion, yep. Look at that. Look at that.
Wow.
Look at that.
It's getting clean. It's getting clean over here.
Yeah.
We done. Thank you for tuning in. Off the Bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers. All right. Well,
what happened segment-wise today?
No idea.
That was 6 segments, and look at that. Noon on the freaking dot.
How?
Not many segments, it felt like.
I counted 6. In my head, we did 6.
I don't know. It's going to be close.
I don't think there was ever a because mathematically, if we do it 6 segments,
no way.
We end at 11:35. We did our job.
Yep.
25 minutes.
We have a 25-minute ad read?
There's just no way. We started 8 minutes late, and that ad read was, I guess, a little long because we were still trying to get Sheldon on. So maybe it got up to 15, but I think
we were hashtag talking soccer for a little bit.
We were. I don't know. I don't know. Usually I keep track of my phone, but today I lost.
So
it.
we opened up just.
I got lost early.
I got lost early too.
So we opened up just with the light fun. Jimmy just talking shit and everything. Okay, cool. Everything was rolling, and then we teased the poll for segment 2, and then came back and talked about the poll and the results. And then the third segment, the hell did we talk about in the third segment?
I think that's where we went missing.
I
think that's where the brains got scrambled.
Then we came back. Then after that third segment, I thought we went right into the reads. This is great stuff, by the way. And look at that. The numbers, just 102, 101, 100. It's fun because it's 12:01 as far as that's concerned. But no, thank you everyone for tuning in, hanging out with Tom's show again to start, and then going right into our show here off the bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers. Down to 99. We're done. We got to get out. That number just keeps dropping. We got to go. Have a good night till tomorrow, I should say. It's been off the bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers.
We're gonna box lunch.
Box lunch.
Sorry, box lunch.
Once we figure out this audio.